Good evening. I'm going to call the CRA meeting to order. It is 6:27, December the 12th, 2018. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Botel?
Here.
Commissioner Miller Anderson? Vice Chair Hubbard?
Here.
Chair Davis Johnson? Also present, Scott Evans, Executive Director, Mayor Masters, and Michael Haygood, General Counsel.
Okay, we will stand for a moment of silence in the pledge led by Councilwoman Botel.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Executive Director and Board of Commissioners, are there any additions and deletions?
No, Madam Chair.
Board members? No.
None.
Okay. Are there any disclosures by Commissioner staff?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. In retrospect and in review, I've had an opportunity to have relationships, business, as the mayor of the city. I think we have given a check to Janice Stallings, also a member of the Sappho family who has done work for the different events such as Family and Friends Day and the ex-felon. And I think also I've done some business with Steve White over the years as well. And I think that we had pledged $500 to give to Mr. White at some program. Didn't we?
Okay, yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you. I've had meetings regarding the parking garage on Singer Island with the owner of a parcel on Singer Island, with a couple of gentlemen who came to meet to discuss that, and with a city attorney, one of the attorneys who sometimes represents the city.
Okay, Mr. Davis?
I would just like to also disclose for the last 3 years, I've been doing continuous meetings with the property owner associated with the Singer Island project. As regards to parking, there is a serious need in this community.
Okay. Councilwoman Miller Anderson?
I do not have any disclosures, and there's been no activity since the last meeting.
Thank you. Okay, I have met with the group that's proposing to do a parking garage on Singer Island on their own properties. And of course, we have done community benefits with several of the local agencies that are here.
I have one more.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Over the past years, I've done business with, I don't know who's on what team, but I've done business with Anne Marie before as relates to previous involvement in the community.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to
So moved.
adopt?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and second.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hubbard?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, for the consent agenda. All matters listed under this item are considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council person so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Are there any items that anyone wish to have pulled? Are there any public comments on the consent agenda?
No.
Okay, that is the end of the consent agenda, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Botel,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hubbard,
Yes,
and carries.
okay.
Discussion of item parking and development, Singer Island.
Okay, that's number 3.
Good evening. The CRA received earlier this year an unsolicited proposal towards developing public parking and new retail development on Singer Island adjacent to the Ocean Mall with the very positive redevelopment outcome of trying to redevelop the Sands Hotel. And in response to this, we have met with the proposed developer, the Volari Group, and discussed the potential project. The CRA owns several pieces of property, 2 parcels, which are a total of about 5,000 square feet. And it's directly adjacent to land that the developer is proposing to construct a new garage, potential future hotel, and possibly some new retail. Retail has become increasingly successful in the Ocean Mall, directly across the parking lot. And we think it's a good time now, especially in the current term of the real estate market, to take advantage of this opportunity. So the CRA, tonight, this is just a discussion item. We're looking for board direction. We would like to take the property that the CRA owns and put it out for a request for proposal for the purposes of increasing the available public parking that's in the available around the Ocean Mall. That we think that there's a definite need both for beach parking and with the increased leasing of the Ocean Mall, we would like to have more public parking available. So we would put this property available to anyone who wanted to propose. The unsolicited proposal has indicated that they are interested. It would make it available for anyone else who wanted to propose also. And it would allow us to then receive those proposals and explore them towards bringing additional parking to the area and achieving redevelopment of the property that we purchased.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Davis.
I would just like to say, just for the record, it's been long overdue as we work on making sure this is part of our beautification and economic development. You know, we can't do anything else without stimulating more parking to that area. And it's been said for a long time that that property owner wouldn't get anything done. And I've been preaching to folks that he's definitely being more aggressive now than ever and willing to work with the city to deliver something. You know, we have a lot of folks come to the city asking for a lot of things, but no one want to deliver something. So to be in a position for the city to be in control of some parking, I can truly support Mr. Evans is greatly long overdue, but you do have my support on this initiative.
Madam Botel.
That's okay.
Thank you. I applaud Mr. Evans in his endeavors with regard to getting more parking at the mall. Those of us on Singer Island also applaud your efforts to get rid of the Sands Hotel. And I've said that to Mr. Valori to his face, and I will say it publicly. It will be a wonderful thing to remove that blight from the island and to put up a beautiful new structure, and as well to have that structure serve the parking needs of the Ocean Mall. So bravo.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I certainly agree with the previous speakers as well. Certainly it would be a plus for the island as well as the city. I've also, just for the record, I've met with the owners of the hotel. I've met with everybody as relates to parking in this new vision. Certainly is blessed to move forward. However, I have to tell Councilman Terrence Davis, I didn't know that he's been preaching for a few years, but since he said he had been preaching, I better ordain you. What you think?
Later date.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Councilwoman?
Did Mr. Evans have anything else to add to it? That was in your presentation? No other information?
Yes, we're just looking for board consensus to allow us to put the request for proposal out, and then we would, of course, bring it back to you, the results of that.
The proposal you will be bringing back to us before you put it out?
No, we would put it out immediately so that we can take advantage of the current real estate cycle.
But you will find out, get some input from us to make sure?
We can circulate it via email if you would like.
Okay, that
Or
would
we
be
can wait till
appropriate.
the next meeting. Well, I'm proposing to put the RFP out and then bring the results, the proposals back to the board.
Okay, I would like to see it before it goes out. So if you could do that, if you could send it
Okay.
via email. You don't have to wait till the next meeting.
Okay.
Well,
Mr.,
Is that a problem?
well, only if you're gonna have any comments about it.
Yeah, just, yeah.
If you're gonna have comments, you have to do it in the sunshine, so you're gonna have to do it on the
Well, I
meeting.
wouldn't be commenting to them. It's for him. We can do it
I
either
would
way.
suggest you bring it back to the next meeting.
Okay,
the, Mr.,
you're fine.
the, Mr. Haygood, the property is owned by the owner. It's a project proposed, and it's a project proposed by the owner to build a parking garage and a hotel on his own project. What he's asking is that the city join in this venture to, as Mr. Evans said, for there will be more parking for the residents. What are we putting out an RFP for the land we own? Because surely we couldn't put an RFP out for his project.
No, the requirement is in the statute, you can't dispose of CRA property without going out for competitive responses. So I think it's 163.380. So you have, the reason that you're doing RFP is because you are disposing of CRA property.
So it's almost administratively because the garage or the structure of the project alone is his, and the only asset that we would be bringing to the table is these 2 additional lots. So I just wanted people to understand how we put out an RFP in addition to a private project.
Yeah, anytime you dispose of CRA property, you have to go through a competitive process.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Evans, it sounds as though everybody here wants to move forward with discussing, with putting out an RFP for the parking garage. Not for the parking garage, but for our particular parcels in this project.
Should
Is that correct? Thank you.
With
You'll
Any other
prepare it.
comments?
With it coming back
Yes,
so that,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Haygood, one last question. If you circulate it, once the RFP is constructed and put together, if you circulate it for additional comments, would that be a violation of the Sunshine Law? Not that we discussing it, but if you send it to us and we look at it and we have some comments, questions, and we send them to you directly, is that a problem?
Yeah, because the Sunshine Law requires you, if you're making a decision on it, so if someone said, well, I want you to change this, and another person says, I want you to change this, then you really are discussing.
Making a substantive change?
Correct.
I see.
So it was just a matter of sending it to you for your review, for you to look at with no comments, that's one thing. But if you're going to be able, or you want to comment on it, I suggest you do it at a public meeting.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Okay, are there any more comments on the discussion of the parking garage proposal? Okay, Mr. Evans, next.
Marina Village Phase 2 RFP.
The Marina Village Phase 2 project will continue the transformation of our city's waterfront. Our goal is to generate broader economic development that will create new avenues for opportunity for the city and our residents. I think we're ideally positioned, having completed Phase 1, to build upon the infrastructure that's already been installed to try and strategically position Riviera Beach to maximize our potential at this location. We intend to build upon our first Phase 1 investments. That included the new event center, as well as our expanded marina, our bicentennial park, and the public promenade. This process started in January of 2017 the CRA board began a new process to create a new vision that would guide the implementation of the next phase. That was followed by the issuance of the Phase 2 RFP, and that was developed through multiple workshops and CRA meetings. And the board and staff has completed a lot of work to study and evaluate the opportunity for redevelopment and to evaluate and score the proposals. On October 31st, the Board of Commissioners considered an agenda item to approve a resolution authorizing staff to negotiate a comprehensive development agreement with APD Solutions. They were the highest ranked proposer for development of the Phase 2 Marina Village project. The board reviewed and discussed the agenda item and determined that they would like to have a presentation by the proposers at the next CRA meeting on November 14th, which would provide the public an opportunity to get an overview of both of the proposals. On November 14th, the Board of Commissioners met and established a clear mandate to review the presentations, hear public comment, and ask questions of the teams, but not to conduct any evaluation. Following the presentations, the board requested that staff prepare written directions to provide the commission with the potential options for proceeding with the commissioner's selection process. We have prepared various options for the board to consider. Option A would be to move forward with the staff recommended resolution from October 31st to direct us to begin negotiations with APD. We have attached this resolution to the backup documents tonight. That's the only action available to begin proceeding with negotiation of the project tonight. The additional options for the board to consider include B. This would require the board to complete an evaluation, and they could have that done by industry professionals. This potential option would allow you to direct staff to bring back a list of industry professionals for you to approve at the next board meeting, as well as a process to proceed with that. Option C would be, at the previous CRA board meeting, the board discussed that you did not intend to score. That does continue to remain an option for you if you elected to score the proposals, and that we could bring that process at a future meeting. Option D is to reject all proposals and start the process again. And of course, an additional option E would be to delay further action to a future CRA meeting date. And one potential option would be you could direct us to hire an independent third-party financial consultant who could help us review and request additional information from the teams for your consideration. That concludes my summary of the process and status thus far. Thank you.
Thank you. And what is the staff's recommendation from all of that?
Staff's recommendation is from October 31st, which was to allow us to begin negotiation of the project. The other options are available to the board to discuss since you elected not to proceed with the original proposal.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board?
Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Evans, excuse me, Mr. Davis, please.
I'd just like to, before we get into the dialogue, are we going to take public comments now, or?
No, I'm asking for comment from the board, please. I'm sorry.
No, is that?
Excuse me, madam, what are you saying?
No, he's talking.
No, I'm just asking, are we going to take public comments now that Mr. Evans has given a presentation before we get into our dialogue, or what?
No, I'd like to hear from the board first, please, and then I'll ask for the public comments, please.
I would like to wait for the public to say what they have to say, the respect,
Me too.
That way, when we go into our dialogue, we don't have to interrupt, and we can keep moving forward how we choose to do.
No, I wanted the board to hear from the board. We had the presentations, we had the discussion, so after the board comments, the public might want to have something to say. But if you prefer to hear the board comments first, then we can go ahead. That's not a problem for me. Madam Clerk, would you please call the first speaker?
Earl Pleasant, followed by Steve White.
Would you announce that public comment cards are closed?
Oh, public comment cards are closed at this time.
Good evening. Council, Mayor, Mr. Evans. My name is Earl Pleasant. I live at 1172 West 37th Street. I'm a property owner there. I'm a property owner at 2701 Old Dixie Highway. This is my opportunity. I'm a resident of this city since 1961. Still reside. I pay my taxes here, but I don't profit anything as far as work. This is an opportunity for me to step my business up so that I can provide work for my workers on a regular basis. I've been in the tile business for 47 years. It's time for me to step it up, train some others to step up and get some unemployment. Now, I was privileged to join this team because I have confidence in this team about getting work. The last marina deal we had, we were given a lot of promises. But when you went for the work, you were turned back because they want to know how much work you have done. I don't want to see that happen again. I want to be able to provide for my family, for my younger people that can come into the tile business and do good. I started off in the tile business as a helper. I'm ending up as a tile contractor, and I want to continue as a CEO of my own company so that I can provide things for my community. I believe that this company can provide me with a good opportunity, wealth, so that we can develop wealth in our own community, which we need. So I thank the council for giving me an opportunity, and I just hope and pray that you pass this resolution number 4 so that we can start negotiating, start training, and bring some work in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve White, followed by Nat Nason and Rick Gonzalez.
Good evening. Steve White, Riviera Beach. So, as it was mentioned a couple of meetings ago, Mr. Evans brought the recommendation that you all enter into negotiations with our team, and led by Mr. Vaughn Irons. I'm asking you to do that. We participated in this process. We prevailed. We played by the rules, and as I've said before, we cannot go and undo that situation. So we prevailed. We're asking you to do really what is right, and what is right at this point is to give Mr. Evans the permission to go into negotiations with us to see if we can work out a contract. Now, we are prepared to work with those on the other team. We know that Mr. Sappho brings a lot to the table. We're not against the idea of us having some type of a cooperative effort, but the reality is that we did prevail. There's also been some concern about whether we have the local participation. Mr. Irons, as you know, when he did his presentation, he is from Atlanta. But other than Mr. Irons, everyone on our team really is local. So we really are the team with the local participation, with the local members. The other team, Weiss is a major player on that team. And I don't know if many people recognize or know that Weiss is an Egyptian-owned company. They're not a Florida-owned company. They're not a United States-owned company. They're actually an Egyptian-owned company. So when you think about the money that we spent for the event center, that money, not only did it not stay in our community, that money found its way to Egypt, to the company that owns it. Live, Work, and Play, another major player on the opposing team, is a Canadian-owned company. So people need to know that we really are the team that brings local participation and local companies to the table. So we're asking you to simply do what is right. You know, we're all going to be judged by our ability to do the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do. We prevailed. We are the team that's prepared to help move this city forward. We have a vision, and we have very competent people on our team that's prepared to do that. And again, like I said, we're not opposed to working with those in the community who share the same vision to move this city forward. But we're asking you to not delay this process. We're asking you to simply adhere to the rules that you established. We adhere to those rules that you established. We prevailed. Please, we're asking you to do what is right and move forward so that we can move forward as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nat Nason, followed by Rick Gonzalez and Vaughn Irons.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Rick Gonzalez. I am the president of REG Architects, a 30-year business. Started with my father in downtown West Palm, and we work all over Palm Beach County. We do a lot of work here in Riviera Beach. We've done a lot of work. We're currently working on your fire stations and on the aquatic center. We've known Scott. We've worked with CRA on many other occasions. I had the honor of meeting Mr. Broussard when this whole situation started about a year ago. Fine gentleman who recently passed away. I had the honor of meeting his wife and his children today, who are part of the business, and his son is here today. And they are very capable local people. They were to the point where they went and they looked for the best developer that they could find that would be really interested in doing a community-based project. And you're going to hear from Mr. Irons in a few moments to hear from his background. There's a very, very deep background. I would be more than honored to work with him and the rest of this fine team of local people. Our money stays here. We have 20 employees. They live in Lake Park, Riviera Beach, West Palm Beach, and other parts of the county. And we would be more than honored to see and hope that you would consider this amendment on item number 4, and that you go ahead with the original recommendation of that excellent team. You know, you did things that very few cities do. You actually went and you got a technical committee of experts. You had very fine experts working on helping you and helping Scott make an informed decision on who would be the best team, and that recommendation was Mr. Irons' team. So I ask you to please consider and vote for this group to proceed and come up with a wonderful project for the city of Riviera Beach and the CRA. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Nat is not available. He had to leave.
Thank you.
Vaughn Irons, followed by Daryl Gishia Broussard and Dwight Stevenson.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Evans, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, sir.
So first, I'd like to just simply say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to allow our firm to come forward and just present our skill sets and our intent to work in your community. I'm sure in your position, before you've decided, people don't always say thank you, and I think it's appropriate because you really did give us honest consideration. What we're asking you to do is to simply follow the recommendation of the committee who followed the process that you all created. We followed the process specifically. We were pleased to find out that we were the highest scoring firm. But in addition to that, I believe that we listened to you over the last several weeks as we've been going through this process. So specifically, I'm not going to go into my background and the firm's background because I think you've heard a tremendous amount about that. But I would like to highlight for you that the reason that we created my firm 9 years ago is so that we can bring the skill sets necessary to the forefront to work in communities that have tremendous potential but remain underserved. That's our whole vocation. We're not just in the development business. We're in the development business to work in communities that we believe have extreme potential and are underserved. But before we created APD Solutions almost 10 years ago, I personally had a stellar multi-decade history of working for 2 county governments, working for a federal agency. I spent 12 years as a senior executive at Freddie Mac. I managed a $9 billion portfolio, and I'm one of the few people that you have in front of you that has a history and a track record over decades of raising private capital to work in conjunction with public monies. We are here because we're not only willing to lead the development process, but we're here willing to put ourselves at financial risk to partner with you to develop your project. We're not asking you to fund our development. We're here saying we're prepared to stand at the scratch line and be in financial risk. We're prepared to lead this project. We heard Mr. Haygood recently just say that today, anytime you use CRA property and you put it into commerce, you have to go through a competitive process. So thank you for allowing us to go through your competitive process. Unfortunately, recently we lost one of our members, and I've communicated with Mr. Evans, and hopefully he's shared that with you. Over the last 3 weeks, we lost Mr. Broussard. But I want to make it clear to you that although we lost a little bit of the spirit of the team, we are not deficient in the skills and the intent to represent you and to deliver the project that we submitted in the package. So again, I say thank you, and I'd also like to very quickly underscore, as I shared with Mr. Evans, we are willing to work with other members of the team and of the other team and find roles for them in the project because it's a big project. So individuals like Mr. Saffold, we have a tremendous amount of respect for him, as I've heard you say, and we're willing to incorporate certain members of the other team to be a part of what we're doing should we be selected and go through the negotiations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Broussard.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I moved to Florida in 1992, soon after my father moved here from New Orleans, and I've lived in the Central Florida area. I've worked as an engineer at the Space Center, and now I own my own business in the Central Florida area as a real estate broker and property management. My father was my biggest cheerleader and supporter, and what I always learned from him is about integrity. And my father, as you heard, had passed away last week, and he really loved this city and spent a lot of hours and a lot of his heart putting what he could into it. And with this opportunity, with this bid, with this proposal, he had a vision that, you know, the Broussard family plans to carry forward along with this great team. And I just wanted to express that I know he cared deeply about this city and all of you for the work that you're doing. And you know, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I watched one of the last meetings, I guess expecting to see a vote go through, and but now I'm here tonight with the expectation that we will see a vote tonight so that we can continue and move forward with this process. So we have a great team full of great people with integrity, and I know that's what's great for this city. So thank you all for the opportunity, and I appreciate it.
Mr. Broussard,
Yes.
I'd just like to offer our condolences as a board and as a city to you and your family.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, stay there 1 second. Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I know for a fact that your dad did great work with this city, CRA. Takes a lot of courage for you to just be here tonight and to stand as your dad goes through this transition. Madam Chair, may we have a moment of silence at this time in memory of Mr. Broussard?
Absolutely.
Shall we stand?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dwight Stevenson, followed by Ronald Davis and Delcia Brooks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dwight Stevenson. I'm CEO of D. Stevenson Construction. And I, you know, very excited to be here this evening. And I take a moment to say that, you know, Mr. Broussard and him making me a part of the team, and now being part with Mr. Irons, I'm very, very excited about it. We really enjoy being a part of a team that cares about the community and want to do the right thing by the community, and this team does. We're located at 401 West Atlantic Avenue, Suite 9, Delray Beach, Florida. And like I mentioned, you know, we're here to show our support for the project. We think it's a great project, and we look forward to building and being a part of the community here, and bringing other team members here along. And be a part of the team that builds this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ronald
Mr.
Davis, followed by Delcia Brooks and Margaret Shepherd.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Ron Davis. I know each of you individually. I've been in the city all my life, having the pleasure of having been one of your former city managers. And I'm not a part of either team. I'm here as an objective observer to make comments about this city moving forward. I'd like to say that the CRA has done what you asked them to do. Mr. Evans and his staff performed an objective evaluation of the proposals received, and they have come forth with a recommendation. I'd like to say further that this is not about any other thing other than the capability of a team to do what you expect them to do. Most importantly is the ability to finance the deal. If you cannot finance the deal, then anything else is moot. Whether you're local, whether you're a homeboy, whether you're this or that, the other, it does not matter. It's about the ability of a team with the right experience and with the right financing to deliver for the citizens of this community. I say and ask you that you go forward. I met Mr. Irons tonight. I know Mr. Brown for years. That is neither here nor there. As a former city manager, I was born and raised in this city as well. But as a former city manager, it is of utmost importance that you not stumble in this decision. We've had 2 decisions with Viking, and here we are, nowhere. This team has put forth, I think, a credible proposal, and I trust that your CRA, Mr. Evans and staff, have vetted and done their due diligence before they came to you with a recommendation. You have a professional staff. I suggest that you listen to your staff, follow the recommendation, and start the negotiation process. To that end, I'm comfortable to say that I'm looking forward to this project going forward with a team that has proven and presented a viable proposal to make it happen for the citizens of Riviera Beach. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Delcia Brooks, followed by Margaret Shepherd and Anne Marie Sorrell.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Delcia Brooks, and good evening, Council, Mayor Masters, who's not here, Scott Evans. I am really excited to be here this evening, and like the gentleman said, it's been a long time. It's almost 5 years for me that I've been going through this process, and I'm excited because it looks like now we're going to make a decision as to who is going to get the opportunity to build out this project. I was given pad site B by the past director, Tony Brown, and I was told at the time to get my developer and to get my rendering, to get everything done, and I spent the past 4 years doing just that. Spent a lot of money. I've spent over $100,000. I have equipment in storage that I probably have to replace at this time. My investors are ready. They have been with me for the past 3 years. Frankly speaking, they're tired. They were just here and they went back to Germany. It doesn't matter to me what group they choose, whether it's Mr. Irons or Mr. Safford. My vision is to build Pangea Grill on the marina. And I have a plan to hire about 50 people. And all those people that I hire is going to be from the community. I've been working through this process for a long time, and I would like to see a decision made tonight because, you know, I was told that to get my builder, I did that. Everything that I was told to do, I did that. So I am at the point right now where I need somebody to make a decision so that I can move forward and I can build my restaurant. You know, the people of Riviera Beach have been waiting for so long. I have been waiting for so long. And You know, I don't want to go into another industry. I've been in this industry for over 40 years. You know, my family owns restaurants and hotels, and, you know I'm good at it. And I just like to see, the decision made today. I think we have enough information to make that decision. I'm not sure at what point the restaurant row was thrown into the rest of the proposal, to the rest of the whole entire project, because I was told that the restaurant will be built first. But here we go today. I am still waiting, and I need a decision to be made. And I know it's a hard decision to make, but we just have to do it. And we have to do it for the people of Riviera Beach, because they have been waiting for so long, and I have been waiting. So I encourage you to make the right choice this evening, and perhaps we can join both forces together and do it that way, so nobody feels left out. Thank you.
Margaret
Thank
Shepherd,
you.
followed by Anne Marie Sorrell and Mary Bram.
Margaret Shepherd, Riviera Beach. Someone asked me, where have I been? I've been under the weather. If you're going to the doctor, my suggestion is do what the doctors say do. But I heard a voice. I said, that sounds like Tony Brown. I got up and I sat on the side of the bed, and I said, that is Tony Brown. And I want to say thank you for coming back to Riviera Beach. Coleman Young in Detroit, Michigan, was my mayor for over 20 years. He said, if you're going to work in the city, you're talking to the police, firemen, and anybody, you must live in the city. The only one I know on the team is Mr. Steve White and Mr. Burchard. We talked, we were close. And if I had to look for logic, I would go to Steve White, because he is a very honorable man, as well as Mr. Burchard. But we're coming down to the wire now. And I hear Ms. Hubbard always say, jobs, jobs, jobs for our community. I think it's coming down to the wire. It's time for our people to at least to have a slice of the pie. I think we had a slice of the pie the last time. And I feel like if it's anybody who could talk about eating pie, I want the whole pie. I want someone I can trust. I want someone I go to bed at night that I don't have to think about what's going on. And I heard you all say that Mr. Brown made some mistakes. And if anything, any of us, we have made mistakes. Maybe nobody know we made mistakes, but we have made mistakes. And if I'm going to get anybody to work in my house, my car, whatever, I want to know that I know them. I wish, Mr. Davis, you would allow the council to speak, because that's where you learn a lot, where you're going, where you're thinking, because right now, I don't even understand the whole project. I just heard part of it. I just heard part of it. And I've had calls after calls and calls. What would you do, Mrs. Shepherd? So since they're asking me by way of Channel 18, I would say one thing. If it was me, like, you don't have to do what I say do. I'm just one person. As the mayor said, I'm just one vote. And I don't have a vote. I would select Mr. Safford. I think he's really growing up. And I think he would be a great team with Tony Brown. And a lot of those people that came with the team, I pretty much know them. But however you all figure it out, the one thing I will not do is fight you. And with that, I thank you very much.
Anne Marie Sorrell, followed by Mary Bram and Andre Roll.
Good evening, Mayor and CRA Board. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you today. I want to say, when I first moved back to Palm Beach County in 2002 and got an opportunity to work for a developer in Riviera Beach to build Marsh Harbor, and bought my first home in Riviera Beach, I was truly, truly excited, because at the time there was this master development plan There were all these exciting things that was gonna happen, restaurants and all these great things to create the Mecca of Palm Beach County, the Mecca of South Florida. And then over time, nothing happened. Nothing, no development, nothing. But then Tony Brown was hired. And Tony Brown came with zeal and excitement and a plan for Riviera Beach. And not only did he come with a plan to implement what was proposed for years and sat on the table, he put together and sought out developers and teams and people that was capable of coming and developing what you see as phase 1 of the Marina Village. And with my business, thank you to many employees and supporters of Riviera Beach and the council, I've had the opportunity to work in this community for years and continue to work in this community. And I want to continue to work in this community and be a part of something that will be a landmark, that will be a destination, a world-renowned destination. And being a part of the team with Ezra and Tony, that is exactly what we're bringing to the table. Yes, many of us are local, and yes, we did seek out international professionals to bring us some ideas and concepts that are best practices around the world, and that is not a crime. That is actually a benefit for Riviera Beach. And so I would like to ask for your support for our team to be considered to be the developer, to bring over 1,300 jobs, to bring business opportunities for small businesses, minority businesses, to bring equity and ownership opportunities as a part of the hotel we're presenting, as a part of the other marketplace and other business opportunities that we're presenting. We are bringing jobs, we're bringing business opportunities, and we're bringing wealth creation for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Mary Bram, followed by Andre Roll and Elizabeth Robinson.
Madam Chair, while Ms. Brown is coming, let me take this moment to announce tomorrow, December 13th, 10 a.m. at the Event Center will be a very huge job fair for ex-felons. Any of the businesses here, please come and sign some people up if you choose to, but it's going to be a great opportunity. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. First of all, I would like to extend my condolences to the Broussard family. I knew him well too, his workings with the CRA, so my condolences are extended for your family. I've been there. I buried my husband in February, and I'm still standing. In the last CRA meeting, no one asked me to come to that meeting. I just so happened stumbled into that meeting. And I spoke in reference to who I thought and who the residents saw. The stalling of the board and the stalling of what we as a city have not had because we have allowed ourselves to get involved in it. The process was tainted and it was messy. It was tainted because you had an in-house committee that normally deals with each one of your council people up there. That should not have been. That's number one with the residents' voice. Since you all did it like this, we are stuck where we are now because of the messiness what you have caused. Yes, yes. We're here with these two here. And as I said before, I have nothing against either team. We need that skill set. Tony Brown has been here. Last meeting, you had some option. A, table the resolution. B, board action, proceed with new evaluation. C, board action to proceed with new evaluation of the proposal. D, reject all the proposals. And E, delay further action until the future CRA, because it will be a new board here. It will. It will be a new board here. When we talk about local participation, yes, they all are local, but what about the residents? I'm so sick and tired as a resident, you all always talk about local participation. We're the residents. We are the one that's local that deserves better. and deserve someone that know, yes, we've had Tony Brown. Yes, when Newcomb Hall was demolished, the residents cried for an event center, something that we could be entertained. We got it. Nobody's perfect, not even you as a board, and none of us. Raise your hand out here if any of these people here contacted Ms. Brown to come in here to speak. No, I speak on behalf of the residents because I'm all over the county. Today I was all up in North Palm Beach at a gathering, and they talked about this same thing here. This is what you all do to this city here because of your wants and your whims, instead of looking at the totality of who can move this city forward. Thank you. Thank you.
Andre Roll, followed by Elizabeth Robinson and Carmen Wildgoose.
Good evening, CRA Board. Mayor, how you doing?
I'm good, sir.
You know, I sit here and I listen to everyone and they make good comments. But the point of the whole matter is that there was a process. And the process is that the team who scored the highest win. Now, Mr. Vaughn made a statement that he's willing to work with Ezra to probably fit him in. He's homegrown, I'm homegrown. I'm born and raised in Riviera Beach. And just like Ms. Graham say, the residents need a place on this job. I was insulted as a Riviera Beachian, if that's we can call ourselves that, when White's Construction and Cash Construction said they were learning curves. They are professionals. Cash, they don't do the work at all. They're construction managers. White does the work. They don't tell the breakers in Palm Beach that they're doing a learning curve when they don't finish projects. There's a lot of things that the citizens and the residents is not taking this foolishness anymore. You know, and if our own can't do the right job, I walked that park on 30th Street to look at that concrete work, and I wasn't comfortable at all. You to have a structure sitting on concrete that doesn't even have a footer. No wonder concrete's cracking. There's a lot of stuff that's been done that is non-standard. You can look at the concrete, those who know concrete. If you don't know the work and you try to get somebody to do the work and they know you don't know the work, you don't know the work is right. That concrete has so much water, it should have been a 6 or 7 slump. It should have had fiber mesh in there. You got safety hazard and trip hazard, and yet they're still putting grass out there today. The project ain't right. And if it didn't start right, it ain't gonna end right. So I say, it's time for a change. It's time for me as construction and craft workers local 1652 laborers who do concrete, who do walls, who do all this stuff to get these residents here. Train them right. Not sit on a forklift and pick up a pallet and set the pallet down and say they're certified forklift drivers. We need to start with the change. And this company has stepped forth and say we're going to come and we're going to prove a point, not just say one. Anybody can talk the talk. I'd rather see someone walk the walk. And I'm going to be involved in this project. I'm going to try to pull those guys that were sitting at a park that I went through Sunday and say, what you doing? How you working? This city is going to look out for you this time. Last time they didn't, and I told those who was on the council that White's Construction did the same exact thing to Belglade. It's a history. It is a history of how they sit there and tell you what they want you to know. Then when they start doing the work, it's a whole different story. But I guess it's a learning curve. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Robinson, followed by Carmen Wildgoose and Ezra Saffold.
Good evening, council, commission, mayor, residents.
evening.
I'm Elizabeth Robinson. I'm here this evening to say thank you to Mr. White for pointing out the fact that we do have a very good team. There are some very good professionals on Tony Brown and Ezra Saffold's team. I appreciate you bringing those points out. I appreciate them recognizing the fact that we do have what we need right here in Riviera Beach. I appreciate that. Here is what bothers me the most. We now have an opportunity to put our, boots on the ground from home and make it happen. Watching our young people who say they want a job, who want to be trained, get that opportunity. Here's an opportunity for us to look at our children who walk the streets every day with nothing to do, nobody to look at that looks like them from their neighborhood that they can talk to and say, well, you know, I remember him. I know his kids. I know where he went to school. I know them. They have a history in our community. It's our time to take care of us. I appreciate the gentleman saying that he went back to his hometown and gave to his hometown because he felt it not robbery. Why can't we do the same thing here in Riviera Beach? Why can't we allow a homegrown individual to give back to Riviera Beach so that he can have something personal when he goes out around the nation and say, well, I did this, but I went back to my home. Why can't we do the same thing? Here's our opportunity to prove to people we mean what we say when we say jobs for everybody. Let's get it done, Riviera Beach, the first time. We talked about a process. If the process is tainted, if you have people on your team who already have biases against the people who are on the team, how do you get a fair process? How does that happen? I don't know. That's a question. That's a question. You know, answer it yourselves in your own hearts. But how do you do that? How do you make that happen? And I really do feel strongly about that. I mean, you know who was on the team. You know how they feel. You know what they've done in the past. But now here's an opportunity for them to say, I got you. Everybody knows who the best person is for the team. Everybody knows who the best person is for this job. Everybody in the community, everyone's talking about it. How do you wait 30 years to get something out of the ground that nobody could do? My very best friend, Michael Brown, had a vision, but he didn't have dollars. My very good friend, Tony Brown, now had the dollars to put with the vision that we all voted for. We wanted that community center. The dollars met the vision, and voila, look what we have. If you know I am that person, then you can trust me. You know what to say to me. But if you don't know who that is, if you know what my flaws are, then you know who they are. You know what to say. But if you don't, then what do? You have to guess about it. I'm here this evening to ask you, please consider the Israel team, Tony Brown. It's the best qualified team, and they should have had a fair chance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carmen Wildgoose, followed by Ezra Saffold and Tony Brown.
Good evening.
Good evening.
To the council members, CRA, and to the other residents of Riviera Beach. I'm Carmen Wildgoose. I reside at 821 Avenue N, Riviera Beach, and I'm here to talk about this opportunity to go forward. A few years ago, we started with this big vision, the new highway, the new event center, and the shopping area, and I'm very excited about that. So I'm glad that we are here tonight to determine which team will help us to realize this vision. Because I read recently that Palm Beach County has seen such a big increase of tourists. Over 8 million people have decided to come to Palm Beach County, and I want Riviera Beach to be part of that prosperity. So it sounds like we have a couple of very good teams, and my only concern is that we have an open and transparent process for making this decision. I think we need to go forward, and my concerns are that whichever team we choose will be a team that will bring about an opportunity for local minority contractors to have jobs, as well as to consider opportunities for apprenticeships so that some of our young people can get involved and understand the value of trades. It should be an educational opportunity for all of us. So yes, we want to make money, we want our city to thrive, but we want to also be able to pass on something to the next generation. So my only concern is that we do move forward and that we make it transparent and pick the best team that's ready to do the work. Thank you.
Ezra Saffold, followed by Tony Brown.
First, I want to offer my condolences to the Broussard family. Ezra Stafford, 141 Riviera Drive. As a native son, resident, and business owner of Riviera Beach, I'm honored to have presented on a project of this scale for the community I love. I never dreamed of being in a position to represent on this level for local women and men who are from where I'm from. I really did put my heart and soul in this effort. And given opportunity, I will continue to serve the community I love. On the opposing team, here are the decision makers: ADP, D. Stevens, and Cooper. None from Riviera Beach. Mr. White and Mr. Pleasant both spoke of what they hope will happen. The truth is, the local businesses that are on their team have zero decision making. Myself and Tony are proposing as the developers, the decision makers from Riviera Beach. White is just one of the many professionals that we have on our team to give the city that I love the best possible project. We're here today because the opposing developer is not the local team. We are. This is the first time a local native son from Riviera Beach is in a position like this. And since I've been a contractor, since 2001, every board has campaigned on creating local businesses to be at the head of the table. Here we are at the opportunity, and now the rules have changed. Hypocrisy, if you ask me. Let's not miss this chance to do something like we said we always would. Thank you.
Tony Brown?
Good evening, everyone. Let me also express my condolences to the Broussard family. I've worked very closely with Arnold, and he did work for the CRA, and he's a fine gentleman and a great professional. Truly will be missed. Mr. Mayor, members of the board, let me say I know how important this decision is to you. I have witnessed this community split over the development of the marina. I have witnessed lawsuits filed. I have seen your citizens collect petitions on referendums on making sure that you got the development right. I know that passion. I know that vision. And we think that we presented that. The marina has long been held up as being the process to be the catalyst for the redevelopment of Riviera Beach, for the redevelopment of Broadway. And we feel that our plan does exactly that. I also want to thank you for recognizing that from day one, when this item was presented to you, you recognized that the process was flawed. You recognized that there was not an interview process. Our attorney, over a month ago, submitted a letter to Mr. Evans and Mr. Haygood, neither of which, and we asked that it be read to the record. Mr. Evans should not have certified those results. There were flaws in the evaluation process. One evaluator showed extreme bias. That one evaluator represented over half of the point variance that we received between us and APD. And then in addition to that, our attorney brought out the fact that when you look at the RFP and you look at what was presented by both firms under financial capabilities, that too was a variance. And we offered another option. So there is actually a sixth option that we presented to Mr. Evans and Mr. Haygood, and that was to disqualify evaluator number 4. You cannot look at that evaluation and tell us that that was not an anomalous score and that that individual showed bias. We also asked that the committee be reconvened to examine the issues we raised in the section of financial capacities, financial capabilities. And if that committee decided that their score should be adjusted, that was the appropriate thing to do. You gave Mr. Evans the right resource, or you gave him a resource, whether it was the right resource. Dana Nottingham was paid $72,000 to be the advisor, to be the professional, to help you get through this process. You should not be here trying to mediate and supervise this process. So we're honored to be here. I would love to have the opportunity to come back to finish what we started. I know your vision, I know your passion, and we would love to have the opportunity to conclude what you started. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you.
That's the end of public comment.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Botel.
Thank you. It's clear to me, and I'm sure it's clear to everyone here and at home, that there's a lot of passion around this issue. There are so many people in the community who have come to me, and I'm sure they've come to others saying, oh, but this team is great, and this team has so many wonderful characteristics. I think, first of all, let me thank both teams for participating in this, and let me also share my condolences on the death of your father. He was a great man. I didn't know him very well, certainly not as well as my colleagues up here, but on the few occasions I had to deal with him, I was honored to be in his presence. So much passion about this issue. I don't want to stop this process. I think that, as others have said, it's very important that we move forward and that we move forward expeditiously to get this done. We can't be seen as dragging our feet. Yet again, we can't be seen as, wasting our time, wasting the taxpayers' time. We want to get this done. However, I am in favor of option B. Let me read it again for those of you who might not have remembered what it says. It says the board action to proceed with a new evaluation of the proposals by industry professionals. People have said that the process was tainted. I don't know if it was tainted. I don't really know if people had bias. I'm not sure. But what I do know is if we take the second option, option number B, and we take a group of complete strangers to Riviera Beach who have no vested interest, no political ties to the city, and we say, you evaluate these two proposals, take out of the picture any influences that can be brought to bear on you. Take them out of the picture, score them fairly, then at least this community will say, okay, we can see that it was transparent. Mrs. Brame said the process was tainted. We can take that off the table because the process will be so clear. It will be so clear that it wasn't tainted because it will be conducted by a selection committee that was not of this community, by a selection committee, I would hope, and Mr. Evans in our conversations about this has assured me that he will give us the names of experts in the field, developers, people who know what needs to be done here. We want to take this out of the political realm and make it exclusively what's best for this community. It may very well end up that APD is again the winner, but at least if we go through this one more step, and I'm not dragging my feet, I want to get it done, but if we go through this one more step of having an outside evaluation done with all of the factors, now that we've had the presentations to the public, we insisted that that be done, and that was done, and I appreciate that. We took a little time to take care of that. People thought that that wasn't fair, that people didn't get to see the presenters in action talking about what they wanted to do. So we took care of that. We've gotten financial information from both teams now. I think that might have not been as clear at the outset. So that's been done. So a group of complete strangers to the city, nobody with vested interest, experts in the field, can now come in with a proper rubric, with a transparent process and say, okay, APD is the winner, and we'll have to live with it. Or Tazewell is the winner, and we'll have to live with it. But that way, at least we can say we had a clear process, we had a fair process, and there were no political shenanigans. I think that we really have to do this for the people. I know how strongly people feel about wanting the local talent, and I would say without a doubt, whichever of these organizations wins this process in the end, they must commit to using every single qualified local construction person in the city. And as you may know, I'm involved in a workforce development initiative. People in the audience have been helping me with that initiative. We want to train our people so they are qualified to do these jobs. And so my goal would be to pick someone who's the best, whichever team it is, because it's not going to be political this time. It's going to be totally, you cannot be accused of knowing somebody or having some bias. Totally not political. And then we say to that person who's won it, you better be sure you use our people, because we're going to be watching. Which brings me to a question I have for Mr. Evans. Who will be watching, and who will be supervising, and who will be from the inside, from the city side, from the CRA side? who will be providing oversight of the project once it moves forward?
You're talking about negotiations for the final development agreement?
Not only negotiations, I'm talking, this is a $200 million project. Do we have the expertise in-house, or will we develop the expertise or acquire the expertise in-house such that going forward, we don't make any mistakes? Because who was it that said, we don't want to stumble? I didn't, I made notes, but I can't. Maybe it was Mr. Davis, or maybe, I don't know. Whoever it was said, we don't want to stumble. I wrote it down, now I can't find out who said it. But we don't want to stumble. This is too big. We can't fail. People are looking at us and saying, okay, watch him trip. No, I'm not going to trip, and I don't think anybody up here wants to trip. So let's be sure we get somebody to have good oversight of this project once it's awarded. And I don't mean, I mean going forward. I mean through the construction, through the whole project. You and I have spoken about this in the past, that we need to have someone with that kind of expertise that's not part of either team. Somebody sitting at 20,000 feet that can really oversee this project and say, okay, we are ensuring that the CRA and that this city is getting the best product for this $200 million. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, Ms. Miller Anderson, comments?
Yes. To Ms. Botel's point, I guess she was probably referring to maybe someone similar as Gilbane was on the other team. So have you been in talks with anyone? Have you decided or figured out who's going to oversee the project?
We would have a team of professionals who would help negotiate the agreement. It would also include the city because it's their property. But we would have definitely a team of consultants. We are considering using Dana Nottingham also, since he's been with the process since 2012. But we would need to bring on additional construction managers as we move through the process to ensure that both our dollars and our assets are protected and that the project is constructed properly.
Thank you. Any more, Mr. Davis?
Yes. First of all, I would like to say I feel really good about having the opportunity to have a gentleman by the name of Mr. Arnold Broussard, get a chance to just meet him. This community lost a great man. When he come to City Hall, he would talk to the custodians, the librarian. I mean, he was here when there was no money being spent. He didn't wait for the big projects to come sit in the back of the council rooms. He was just here hanging out, fellowshipping with all the council, all the staff, just getting an opportunity to really understand the flow of the city. And very seldom do you see professionals really come and do that. There's a few others that do it, but he was one that you can really give a great deal of respect for. Like myself, I do believe in local. When I came back to this community in 2000, after graduation in 2005 from Florida A&M University, I came here with a goal, with making sure that there's local folks having opportunities. I never forget, once elected, we had phase 1. Mr. Brown was the CRA director at the time. He brought before the board, he had 7 teams that applied for the construction phase. White's Construction was brought before this board as a winner. Mr. Sappho was the number 2 person. Him and Ms. Brooks came to the microphone and spoke about local participation. No one from the council at that time flinched. I supported the board in the process 5-0. No one complained about this or that at the time. Mr. Haygood, Attorney Haygood, what is the process for protesting? If someone to protest something, what is the process?
Under the procurement code, once a decision is made, you can file a protest.
So under the procurement code, once we make a decision as a board, and the vote is taken, then a protest is made?
If someone feels that your decision is not correct, yes, they can file a protest.
And I'm glad you said that, because I'm hearing a lot of accusations about what was done wrong at this phase. But back then in phase 1, MedTech came and filed a protest. And in that protest, they stated what, Mr. Haygood?
I don't recall.
Mr. Evans, do you remember what MedTech said?
I think they felt that the evaluation process was unfairly done also.
What did they say what happened?
They said that there was unfair bias, I believe, by the evaluation committee.
What did they say what was said in that meeting?
I'm not
Who
sure.
said
Mr.
what?
Davis.
What did they say?
Yeah, I would have to research it for you.
Well, Mr. Higgett, you remember?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going to tell you what was said. Me and this gentleman don't always agree on everything. But Amon Israel came before this microphone and stated that Tony Brown said this is a two-horse race during the process behind closed doors. And it was recorded. Do you remember now? And he presented some electronic evidence to the board stating what Mr. Brown had did.
I'm sorry, I do not recall.
Okay, well, just follow back up so that everyone has that information. Let me ask you another question, Mr. Haygood, Attorney Haygood. In the protest process, did Mr. Brown, did their team file a protest officially?
I don't recall. I know that we had a protest filed on one of the bids, but it wasn't an RFP on the bids. And we went through the process. The process is that the initial decision is made by the executive director as of whether or not the protest has merit. If the person is, if the complainant is unsatisfied with that result, they can then bring it to the board.
So you gave the board a letter in November. What was the memo about? About a complaint filed, right?
Well, yes, there was.
Could you
the
please
letter
explain?
The letter that Mr. Brown referred to.
What date did we receive that letter?
I'm not good with dates. It was prior to your last meeting, so.
So it's safe to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he filed the informal protest before the vote was taken. Is that safe to say?
He raised the issues, yes.
So he raised the issue, which is another form of a protest. Is that correct?
Yes, and we told his attorney that it was.
Please stay in the microphone, please, sir.
We told the attorney that it was premature because the board hadn't made a decision.
Correct. So, okay, now I'm gonna get back to that. The last meeting, the gentleman from White's Construction, Mr. Brown, came to the microphone, and they stated on the record that we made some mistakes the first time. Yes, we did not finish the project. Yes, there's still punch list items that are not complete. And it's been 30 plus days since that last meeting. The project is still not complete to this day. There's still punch lists working. Mr. Evans, Mr. Scott Evans, since the last meeting, have you been contacted by that team to come and show any concerns about finishing that punch list?
No, we haven't, but we don't have an outstanding list of items. There were some items, I think, that comment was made at the last meetings that weren't completed the way that they wanted, so the construction was done by Whites. We don't have any outstanding punch lists.
I think we need to go back and look at the minutes. Mr. Brown, not Saffold, I apologize, Mr. Saffold. Mr. Brown and the gentleman from White's Construction, when Vice Chair Miller Anderson asked questions and concerns about the event center not being done complete, and they admitted on record and said, we're sorry, we'll do better. They said, we're sorry, we'll do better next time. So my question is, we saw what Mr. Brown team can do. And this is we're just talking about just the Marina project. He'd been here, he did some great things in the city. I can't take that from Mr. Brown. And I was respect him for his effort and hard work that he put in place. What I will say is that one thing I will say, I will never give up my integrity when making a decision. We had $30 million borrowed by you, the taxpayers, on your dime. Not new private money. Never at any point did any private money come to the table. $30 million. And out of that $30 million, Riviera Beach made $250,000. So you saw, we've tried this. $250,000 of your money that you got to pay back. Not private money like what's being suggested today. Not private money. You admitted to not completing the punch list. You admitted to making mistakes and said, we want to come back. My question is only why? Please.
You're on a roll, I can see.
Please.
Okay.
Let me explain something to you. I'm just asking questions because our residents, every time we make a tough decision, Councilperson Botel, and I give you respect since you've been here, and we'll never cross that line. When we came before this community and talked about making a decision, and you can recall me saying, if we punt this time, it'll be a race to the meeting. Remember when I said that? I said they're going to be making phone calls, they're going to be pushing about who can get the most folks here. The team that's being recommended is the only discussion. They willfully got on record and said, we will reach out to all the members of the other team and do what your goals are. Mr. Broussard's son came to the mic and he said, we're going to honor my dad's legacy. That gentleman said that. And we have people, I'm just writing and looking at the names in the room. I'm looking at people in the room. When I look at the team that's recommended, Ms. Dozier, Riviera Beach, Mr. Newbold, Mr. Andre Rowe, Ms. Walmack, Ms. Stallings, and her husband, her children, her mother, the entire family, Mr. White, Mr. Pleasant, Riviera Beach, all Riviera Beach. Mr. White is a decision maker. Now, I might not be on it, but you can tell by the way things are structured, he's at the table doing something. Then I also go down and look, the Granberry family has a representative here. Mr. Parrott bought a house, engineer, big firm, the largest minority engineering firm, probably in Palm Beach County. I look at Mr. Nat Nason, a gentleman that played in this city, did everything that you can imagine in this city, and still here. I look at the other side, Mr. Brown, Pierre Wilson, Mr. Lubeck, Mr. Sappho, Miss Burke, Miss Anne Marie. All you guys have an opportunity to work together. It's not us versus them, it's Riviera Beach. And this team has probably been the first team I ever seen in my life that come to this city and reach out grabbing people like you couldn't imagine. And then reached out to you and stayed at the mic, they be ready to bring you on the side now and give you a significant role. That's never been said before. All to do the right thing, prevent the fight. We don't need a fight. Then they informally, and I'm gonna move forward, informally filed a what? Protest. Attorney Haygood stated what? You have to wait till the decision is made, then file a protest. The complaint was he had an issue with someone on the team. And that may or may not be true. And I have to give anybody that. But when you bid it on the process, you don't choose who you want to select to supervise or to evaluate you in this process. You don't make that choice. You have to give your best foot forward, and if you win, guess what? Just like when Whites won, I supported you, Mr. Brown, on it. You brought the same company back. We tried that, Mr. Brown. We tried it. I didn't deny you. I voted yes on it, supported you, was your biggest supporter. Even when you was accused of doing the wrong thing in the protest, I stood by you because I tried to move this city forward. And we tried it, and it was fair. So when I look at option B, that my colleague suggests and says, board action proceed with a new evaluation of the proposal. Then I look at option C, board action proceed with a new evaluation of proposal by agency board commissioners at a future special meeting. Just to talk about new evaluation, cancel these out because he did not file a formal protest. We would go to court and lose because the way this process is done. Because there's a recommendation coming before this board. there was a concern filed prior to the vote, which makes that an informal complaint protest. Mr. Brown and his team was supposed to wait until the vote was taken, just like the first time. An attorney fought, if you just following the steps legally, just like the first time, and submit, hey, I have an issue with this. You file your complaint, you come before the board, we hear your issue. If it's valid, we support it, and we make a decision. That did not take place. So, but what we did was, even though it was an informal and we're not following their process of the protest, that eliminates B and C immediately, legally. Now, you can go forward and ask this board to follow that direction, but I'm not making no decision that's going to put us in a bad position lawfully.
I disagree with you.
And that's fine, Mr. Haygood.
Thank you.
And that's fine. But you telling me, and I ask you a question on record. I asked you a question on record. What is a protest? Did they follow it? And you said no. Yeah. And then you brought back a recommendation with 4 items. 2 of the items was in response to the informal protest.
No, sir. Because I, in fact, was consulted on the alternatives that were given to the board. So I wouldn't have recommended them to you if I thought there was something illegal about it.
What I'm saying is this here. Let me be clear on this. And I'm serious about this decision that we're talking about making. We keep kicking this can down the road. We keep kicking down this road. Everyone's watching. But if I'm watching from the outside, I'm watching Riviera Beach make a decision or get prepared to make a decision. The only question and concern I have is we put a process in place that was not tainted. We should have moved forward the recommendation and vote and stayed focused on where we are. Don't let folks from the outside make a decision. Come and tell you what's going to happen. Let's say we put it out on the street for someone to evaluate it, right? Now it becomes who knows who. We don't know who knows who, Councilperson Botel. Think about it, right? So we have to rely on professionals to make a decision. So they're going to look at the teams, look at the names. Mr. Brown has relationships all over the world. The gentleman, Von Irons, has relationships all over the world. When people deal with real estate, they call Chip Lubeck in Riviera Beach, all over the world. Nat Nason. Let's not talk about they're going to get upset because one of the famous Dolphin players is on the team. So if a Dolphin fan is on the committee, what are we going to do? You get what I'm saying? No matter what you do, someone is going to be unhappy. We all sat through a process. We followed it through. Just like we tell our children in our homes, and like our parents told us, set the rules, play by the rules. When you lose the game, you get better, you get good sportsmanship, you go across the line, you shake their hand and say, hey, listen, how can I be a part of that team? Not come and say, oh, we know they got them on the agenda, and I start putting all this information out about why something is, I don't appreciate being saying it's tainted, but that did not happen in this case. And hey, good, I want to say for the record, I have great integrity for what you do as an attorney, but I have question of, and I'm only questioning the protest process, and I have real concerns with that. And I want to put that on the record, because when you file an informal protest and our response, we have 2 responses addressing the same thing in the protest, in writing, on the agenda, I have great pause at that. And I want to take into consideration what my colleague wants to do. And that's the issue. When you go before someone, how do you take a bias out of a process? We've done that. And the way we did it was we had a committee, like someone commended us before, and said, you did something that no one else in Palm Beach County does. We had an oversight committee that focused on all the technical issues, and a technical review committee that talked about what? All the things that we wanted in the development. We didn't say no names. We just talked about details, details, details. They took this information without faces, without having faces, and focused only on the documentation, the ideas that we shared in the room. And so when it came out, based upon the information, now the information said that we may or may not do a presentation, just for the record. It did state that. I'm just saying, please allow this city to do what it needs to do. There's always a cloud over this community, and we need to find a way to move forward with the recommendation, follow through with our commitment, what we owe the taxpayers, allow this team to reach out to the other team, to do what they say they're going to do, and bring back a beautiful project that we can celebrate in the new year for Palm Beach County. That's all I'm saying, and I hold my comments to them.
Madam Chair.
I have a comment. It's my turn. Yes, ladies. Okay. You know, I've heard all my colleagues' comments. I've heard the comments from the audience. And one thing for sure, we have all, and I still stand, and everybody can tell you, equity, participation, and inclusion is what I have been trying to put in place so that the residents of Riviera Beach and local minority participation can be realized in this community. I will certainly say to both teams, there's no one team more local than the other. Born and raised here, I can tell you who's local and who's not local. This team, there's not one team any more local than the other. And yes, I said that I wanted to have local participation. There's no hypocrisy, Mr. Sappho, in what I stand for. I stand clearly that I said that I did say that I wanted to see local participation. But trust me when I tell you, local participation does not mean just a local GC. Local participation does not mean just a local contract manager. What local participation means to me, so that you can be real clear about what I'm talking about. When you have people that have done drywall hanging all their lives, and you can put 3 and 4 teams together, and you got a group of guys that can go out there, start a small business, and participate in the process. When you can turn around and say, this guy, I'm going to get this company small, and I'm going to see that he creates wealth in the community for other people. I'm not talking about the GC. I'm not talking about the contract management team. I'm talking about actually taking the person when you create the hotel, and now this woman has a business where she provides towels, linen. She has a team of women that comes in and clean. She has you have a guy that has a new valet business. That's what I'm talking about when I say local. So all the skimming and flow shining on the top is not just local. You can put fronts on anything. You can come here and say, I am going to do this and do that. We have had so many people come to this town and say, I'm going to hire local. We want to do this. We're going to hire the local people. They're going to get jobs. That never happens. Just because the people are from here don't mean anything. Skin folks ain't always kin folks, and they're not always doing right by the people or by us as a community in here. We can't sit up here and say that this group is not local or that group over there is not local. What I'm talking about is actually creating policies and procedures, opportunities that's going to provide for the people of Riviera Beach. Every time we say that we created an ordinance for the apprenticeship group, for the local skilled laborers to take the non-labor workers, to put them together so that they will be able to actually work on a project. When you have a $40 million project and your community only gets $300,000, and then you watch people borrow money and your water bill increase annually because people are borrowing money. That's not equity and local participation. Equity and local participation is when you are creating wealth on the ground that's going to be lasting throughout the community. I'm not trying to be hypocritical by not choosing one team over the other. I'm trying to choose the best team that's going to be able to show and produce and leave some wealth in this community. Leave some wealth that we can turn around and that we can create. When you continually come here and you get jobs and we give you chance and you don't do right by us because you of us, you know, I expect you, if you of us, to do better for us and by us than anybody else. So when we're talking about local participation, being hypocrites, saying we want to build wealth, we want local communities, people to have a part of it, ain't nothing changed. I'm still saying that. But I'm saying, don't think that I'm not talking about a little deeper. I'm talking about real, true participation. Don't tell me you got 30% of a 100% project, and so I'm going to hire a consultant. He going to eat the whole 30%, and you going to say I met the local participation requirement. That does not meet it. How many businesses did you create? How much wealth did you leave on the ground when you left Riviera Beach? That's what I'm talking about, local and equity participation in the city of Riviera Beach. I don't have to say anything about black and minority. 33404, the majority of it is black and minority. We have a local ordinance that reaches all the way down today. Why? Because some of the skill sets had not been had the opportunity to foster and grow and live in Riviera Beach. So it ain't about not being true to local participation and hiring our own. It's about our own doing right by us. It's about the opportunities that our own have had. It's about the fact that the rest of our own is not getting the opportunity to participate in the wealth. When you go from a $40 million project to a $300 million project and you didn't do right with $40 million, what makes you think we're going to do right with $300 million? We can't continue to take the shot off the table every time. And I'm not saying one team is no different or no better, but I don't appreciate the fact that people are going to stand before us and tell us that we tainted the process. I couldn't tell you who was on the committee right now. I'm not going to stand here and let nobody walk away and say that I'm being hypocritical when I say I want local just because I don't want, because you think I don't want you. It's not, I'm not a hypocrite. Everybody know from one project to the other, I want the procurement policies in Riviera Beach changed so that the local community can participate and that everybody can eat, and that the same handful of people are not the only ones eating because they are not sharing. They are not creating. They are not growing. They are not bringing people up with them. So I say that for me. And yes, I do apologize. I have a loud voice. I have a deep voice, and I am passionate about what I believe in, and I believe in my people that all of us eat. I want it all. Simply, I want it all for us. We deserve it all. But I don't think I have the right to just say to you, just because you live in 33404, you're going to do right by me and I owe you something. I believe that you owe me something. You need to do right by me because we're supposed to be one. But when you do me worse than people outside the area do me, then you're going to think I'm wrong for continuing to take that. You do me wrong once, shame on me. On you, twice is shame on me. So I don't think you're being fair when you say that we tainted the process. I don't think you're being fair when you say that I'm being a hypocrite, because I'm not being a hypocrite. I'm saying it to everybody in your face. I don't care who get it. It's cheaper you know. It's cheaper you know that I'm going to be in your face about local participation in creating wealth in this community. That's not going to change. That's not something I'm running from. And I'm not going to say it behind closed doors. Hear me now. Whoever gets it, that's what you can look forward to.
Madam Chair.
No.
Ms. Anderson.
Okay. Wanted to give my condolences to the Broussard family, and I want to lead off with that because some time ago, I did voice concerns with Mr. Evans many, many months ago. I know that Mr. Broussard was working in the CRA department, And I did ask in regards to how much knowledge or how much input or involvement he was in when this RFP was being written. Mr. Evans did share with me that he was no longer a part of the group, or he was no longer working there or was involved. But I did share that concern many months ago. So there was an issue, that was an issue for me. The financials, I know that APD did submit their financials. However, it appeared to be somewhat of a QuickBooks type format. I still would like to see financials that could be confirmed to say for sure that those funds are within arm's reach, or you have the capacity to do the job. I understand there was an issue with TES rolls, but in looking at it from my point of view, APD did not meet the requirement either, because with QuickBooks, you can make it say when you want it to say it, and I'm not saying that you did that. I'm just saying that that type of software program does not provide any type of certification, or there's no auditing behind it. There's no proof that those numbers are accurate or true. Not saying you don't have the capabilities. I'm just speaking of the format in which it was presented, and that there was no certification of those financials. The part about the evaluators, Mr. Evans, for the evaluators that were on this project, who evaluated this, who were the people that did that, the evaluations?
The evaluation committee consisted of Andre Lewis, CRA project manager, Randy Sherman, city finance director. It was also, let me just check my notes here. Pierre Rodriguez, Comerica Bank, and Willie Horton, assistant city manager and executive director of the utility district. And I believe there was one more. It would have been Jeff Gagnon. Thank you. Director of Development Services for the City of Riviera Beach.
Okay. Now, with that being said, what is the expertise level in regards to the evaluating the proposals? Did the individuals have?
We use the department directors, as we have for all of our previous RFP analysis, including phase 1 of the marina. So that was and we specifically used a director from Development Services, who is used to reviewing development from a planning and zoning perspective. Mr. Sherman, who came from the finance department. Mr. Willie Horton, who was from the city manager's office.
What expertise does he bring?
As a long-term government manager. That's why.
From the utility district?
Yes. Mr. Rodriguez was the former chairperson of the Riviera Beach Business Council.
Now, if we went with the option of identifying new evaluators and having them come and do it, how would they be different from the list of people that you just read off to me?
If you went with that option, we would select them from other governments from around the county, as opposed to utilizing and industry professionals who are unassociated with this particular project, of course. And we could bring you a large list, and then you could narrow it down at the next meeting.
But when you say industry professionals, how would they be different from the professionals we had on here?
They would be similar, just not from Riviera Beach.
So you would get a department head from another city?
I would get an expert in finance, construction, development, real estate advisor, and possibly local participation.
Okay. And could you just explain a little bit about was there a difference in the scoring? Mr. Brown mentioned that there was one evaluator that may have that appeared to score very different from the others. That was like an outlier.
Yes, I believe the letter objected to the person who scored the Tezrel project the lowest.
Mm-hmm.
We don't believe that it was extremely low compared to the other ones.
What were some of the wide ranges that you?
Of the 5 evaluators, 4 selected APD as their preferred choice, and 1 selected Tezrel, and their individual scores.
I mean, you don't need to say all of them, but are there some on there that have a wide range?
There was definitely a range, yes. There was obviously one evaluator selected Tezrel as the highest, and several others were.
But I'm talking about individual categories. So, in one category, was there one person that said 5 points, one person said 1 point, one person said 15 points? What do you see anything in there that's pretty far off that may appear to be very different from what the others may have put?
We didn't see anything that was dramatically different. I think sometimes some evaluators, it's small points differences all the way across the different categories that results in a larger variance at the end. But in the individual categories that we looked at, obviously there was a low and a high in each one, but they weren't that varied.
How much was in between the highest and the lowest? And the most extreme one?
I can look that up right now.
Oh, I thought that was it you had in front of you. And the letter that was written by Mr. Brown regarding basically being a bid protest prior to being an official bid protest. What were some items in there that he mentioned other than, was there anything else that was left out?
As I recall, they were specifically, it was about the allegation that one of the evaluators had scored them disproportionately low compared to the others.
So that was the main issue?
That was
in the
one.
letter?
There was a question, they also raised the issue about the financial documents that were submitted. I think those were the 2.
Okay. So.
And I will add that our process allows them to file a formal protest once a decision has been made.
Right. Well, with the situation, and I'm not going to rehash what I said during the first time, like during the presentations. There were a few things that I mentioned that brought some concern to me with the process, with the principles, the financials, a number of items that brought pause to me. And for me, I would be a little hesitant, well, not hesitant, I'm sort of concerned if we chose the option of going to get new evaluators to evaluate the 2, almost similar to what Mr. Davis said, but a little differently in that we still could not control who knows who. But in that case, I think I would feel a little more comfortable in terms of the expertise of the people who are doing the evaluations. No slight to our staff that was on the evaluation team, but I do sometimes have questions about several of them. And they know that, and I'm not saying anything new here tonight. So I'm not really confident in the evaluations or the thoughts that went behind some of their scoring. I personally would be making a motion to reject all the proposals and start over. I'm not in favor of delaying, but I've had some issues and concerns with a number of things involved in this process, involving some of the documents, and I'm not gonna sit here and say it was not an issue or a concern, that's the better word, a concern for me with the passing of Mr. Broussard. But I do appreciate the family saying that they have, are willing to step in the gap for that company and continue on. But that was certainly a concern of mine, at least in the past few days. But, I would like to make a motion that we reject all the proposals and start the process over.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Motion dies for lack of a second. Ms. Botel?
Well, I will second only for purpose of discussion then.
Died for lack of a second. Let's start. Make
a motion.
All right, then I make the same motion. I just want to discuss it, so I'll make the motion. Thank you. So my question is, Mr. Evans, what jeopardy does this put us in terms of ability to find financing for the ability of these developers to find financing, ability to get the project off the, what if we reject both of them out of hand, what's the jeopardy to us?
One of my concerns is we may lose the current real estate cycle, because starting all over again is a lengthy process that could take a long time. The second is it reduces the development community's confidence in our ability to complete a process which results in a potential new project.
Another question. I was of the impression when we discussed industry experts that we are not necessarily looking to other municipalities, but rather to industry experts, developers who had not put their hat in the ring, people who were in the industry. Is that not something that we could take a look at if we chose option B?
We could get a wide variety of industry professionals.
Okay. Could we also engage in some process that ensured that we had no knowledge on the part of any of those individuals of both the presenters? Could we make that a criteria for selection we have to have a selection process for the selectors?
I guess we could try, but we could also have them all sign, disclosures that say.
Which was done in this case. Each of the people who were on the board signed statements that there was no conflict and they had no knowledge of the individuals.
People said they didn't know Tony Brown?
No conflicts. I didn't say they know that.
Okay.
They had no
'cause
conflicts.
That'd be a heck of a, okay. So I guess I'm still of a mind that in order to move this forward, and I would be willing even at this point to say, no matter what this selection committee says, when all is said and done, I would say, I will vote yes on this second go round, just bring it on, because if it's clean, if the public has seen the presentations, if it's been transparent, if the selection committee has had an opportunity to ask the kinds of questions that they might not have had an opportunity to ask before, those questions about finance, those questions about the stability of the companies, those questions about local participation, if that can happen, I'm happy that I would hope that the community will be satisfied that we have done everything in our power to make this a clean, transparent process. We've had the presentations, we've done everything we could do, and I will say right here and now, I accept the recommendations of that selection committee.
Comment.
I would like to make a motion then.
Motion already on the floor, we're making comments.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair.
Comments, I say comment.
Oh, comment cards.
No,
comment.
I have a comment.
Oh, she did like this. Just threw me off for a minute.
One of the things that I just heard that concerns me is jeopardizing the ability of developers to keep their financing in place so that we don't end up like we were before a few cycles ago. The other thing that I hate or would not like to see happen is that every time we do a process, that it forces us into a legal battle. Yep. Every week we go to closed executive session. When you hear us say we're going to close executive session, that's because somebody is suing us about process. It's always about process. So if we were vested in the process that we put in place, we've already been presented with one, I guess, pre-legal notice, which I guess will be presented with another. What I would like to say is, if we start our negotiation with one and we don't come out of, you don't always come out of negotiation where we're going to go with that. If we don't come to a clean start with that company, then we move on to number two and start the negotiation with number two. And we do that with several projects that we have done here in the city of Riviera Beach. The winner did not come out of the negotiations where they wanted to be, and they stopped. So we went to the number two ranked. And we did that until we got where both teams were comfortable. My concern is this. I don't want the financial community to look at Riviera Beach or look at either company and say, hey, you guys are taking our money there, and it's and it's quite unstable. Because the people that are lending money, they're not going to be respectful of personality. They're talking about, are you going to make good on the money that y'all are asking us to invest? And as Mr. Evans pointed out, it won't be long before there's no money to lend. Nobody will be lending money for these major projects. That $40 million we spent, that was our money, and we're still paying it back. As residents, we are still paying that. We don't have anything to show for it as far as I'm concerned. But we're still paying it back, and I do not want us to look as if we can't make a decision, work with Group A. If we don't come out to a conclusion with that, then move on to Group B and Group C like that. Because if we have to be sued to do the right thing, it's not going to make us look good in the financial world. Madam,
I call the question.
Madam Chair.
I call the question.
Madam Chair, I need to have the right to make a comment to this item.
If I call the question.
No, that is not true.
No, that's not true.
Ms. Botel, point of order. Let me explain something to you. He had already had asked before I spoke, and I told him that I was making a comment. You remember? And I said, I want to make a comment. He said, and then I was going to let him make a comment. Now, go ahead, Mr. Davis.
What I will say is that I can respect all my colleagues' position on doing the right thing. But Chair Hubbard is correct right now. When we talk about our bond council, them banks are watching our every meeting. And it puts a lot of things at risk when we don't make decisions. We're in a position right now to do what we've been voted by all the city to do, which is go into an agreement, sit at the table, and at the table, staff will run through with their numbers with their professionals and look at their financing. If the financing is not right, it will come back to this board. And when it comes back to this board, we go to we make a decision if we want to go to number 2 team or not. When you look at West Palm Beach and the Palm Beach Post yesterday, City Place having an issue with the refinancing of that loan and the financials. And you read the article, there's some conversations referencing the market today. It's in the front page of the local section.
Excuse me.
This is real. This is not about politics and what people want you to do. You got lives at stake. We got people in this room, and I say all you guys on one team, which is our community. I believe that. Do not let people, and I'm going to take my time before we get to what we need to get to. Do not let people distract us from being able to work together. We have an opportunity to work together. I look at this, when everyone have their concerns, we can address those concerns during negotiations. If this board does not agree to those concerns, then we can move to the next stage. And if that don't work, then it goes back out on the street. Then we can be respected more by our colleagues. I can imagine right now, developer B that wanted to get in Riviera Beach sees an opportunity to say you don't have a good team because they're going to come back and resubmit when we put it back out on the street. So you open your door once again, Riviera Beach, to let the outsiders dictate how we do business. And because of that, I make a substitute motion that the board approves. Madam Chair?
1 minute, point of order, all of you. When she read, excuse me, 1 minute, Mr. Davis, Ms. Botel, let me say this, and I'll also say it in the form of a question. When the clerk read the question, there was a motion and there was a second.
Correct.
Therefore, there was a motion on the floor at that time, which we did not call the question as of yet.
Correct.
Secondly, and while we all talking about Robert Rules of Order, secondly, there was another motion made on top of that motion by Councilwoman Botel. And Kashama subsequently seconded. So let me say, and then you're making a subsequent motion. We have not disposed of the first motion that was on the floor. And wait, we have not disposed of the first motion that was on the floor.
Okay.
It did not. There was a call of the question. There was a second. So that has to be disposed of first. While all of you and your Robert Rules of Orders.
What's the motion, Madam Chair? Just for the record.
Please read the. When you read the quotient that.
The motion was to throw them all out.
Exactly.
The second motion was.
First motion, the very first.
To
one.
throw them all out as a discussion.
No,
The motion was.
I'll read it.
As I recall, the original motion was by Mrs. Miller to start over.
Correct.
The clerk read, Mr. Hagan, let me ask you this. When the clerk read the motion, the recommendation from the very same paper, that when she read the item, there was a first and there was a second. When she read the resolution that stated the motion, there was an acceptance and there was a second, or we wouldn't be having this discussion. It's always a first and it's always a second.
That's just for the resolution.
It's just a discussion.
The motion, and I'm just doing this from memory.
Correct.
I'm telling, it's right here. It's right here. We did
The motion was
not have the vote.
Right.
We did not have the vote, and that's what I'm telling you now. There was a first, there was a second, and the question was not called, so it was not disposed of. You can move on to your second motion and your third motion, but you must dispose of the first.
There was no motion or second, it was just a discussion item.
Time out.
No motion on the floor. It's just from the previous meeting.
No, we didn't talk about the previous meeting.
I know. Because it was just discussing.
Yes.
So as I recall, there was a issue, the original motion was by Mrs. Miller. It was seconded by Ms. Botel.
No, it died for lack of a second. So I
That's correct, that's correct. You then made the same motion.
We could discuss
and it was then seconded by Mrs. Miller. So the motion that is on the floor is to start over, to throw everything out and start
And
over.
now I would like to call the question
Madam Chair?
and vote on that.
Point of clarity
Point of-
on the motion. Mr. Attorney Haygood, is am I understanding correct? Does a substitute motion trump any motion, and it must be addressed before you move on? Is I stand correct on that?
No, I don't think.
Please go back and do the research on a substitute motion only. Please, take your time. A substitute motion must be heard before the initial motion.
I don't.
Okay.
Take your time. If I'm wrong, I stand corrected, but please understand.
At a minimum, the original maker of the motion would have to approve the substitution, at a minimum.
No,
Yes.
no. It must be second.
Otherwise, you never get a motion done.
Just research it then. I'll follow your lead
Now,
after research it.
I'm going to ask for a point of order so that we can get back to
Yes,
what we
ma'am.
know is the process and what we know to be the procedure for those of us who knows. At the last meeting, the item was tabled. First and foremost, we're going to need a motion to untable this item.
Yeah, by law.
Secondly,
No.
I don't.
yes.
You do need a motion to untable an item.
You have a motion on the table now. You don't,
But
there is
listen.
not a motion to approve that resolution to bring it back. So the motion is to start over.
Mr. Haygood, now, everybody in this room, now listen to, when Mrs. Sequin opened the floor, she read the heading. In the heading, when she finished, based on her notes, someone said, so moved, and someone said, second. The floor then opened up for discussion. We went on for
Oh, I see what you're saying.
for discussion. Then, as we went on subsequently in discussion, there was a second motion made. So you mean to tell me we went into a lengthy discussion without a first and a second?
You did because the resolution was tabled at a previous meeting, so tonight is a discussion. The resolution is attached, so you can untable it and approve it.
Right, but we're not doing that right now.
And we have to untable it to address it.
But we're
So,
not addressing it now.
That's not.
We're addressing this motion now.
no, ma'am, we're addressing this issue now. We are addressing this issue now. And that is the process. I'm sorry, if you cannot,
I didn't do a motion in a second.
I'm sorry, Ms. Sequin.
I didn't do a motion in a second because it was just a discussion. So I just
Okay.
read what was on
Right.
the agenda.
Right.
Yes.
And then you all went
Right.
into discussion.
Right.
And then I
Right.
made a motion.
And then I made the motion. Your motion died for lack of a second. I made it, and now we're discussing that motion, and I have called the question, so we can vote on that motion now.
No, ma'am.
We have a substitute.
No, ma'am. Yes, that is what has happened, as Mr. Evans pointed out, it was never untabled. So, and,
Will staff please,
No.
Madam Chair?
go ahead.
I'm just trying to make sure that staff is following and leading us right in this process.
I'm following the Robert Rules of Orders that,
I know, I'm just making sure that they're kind of quiet, so I'm just trying to figure out.
because I know what they are.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
if you want my opinion.
Yes.
Now, so the
we'll
board-
just go with your opinion, yeah.
Okay. So, as I understand it, there was a discussion item. There was never and the item was being discussed.
He's right.
Correct.
Before you can approve that resolution, you'd have to bring it back on the floor. But as far as this motion, whatever the motion is, I think you can go ahead and just vote the motion up and down, and then if someone wants to move it back off the floor, that would be my recommendation.
Okay, Mr. Haygood, we can go with what you're saying.
Okay.
But what I will say, just for point of clarity, so you don't go through life thinking that that's the way it's done. The resolution was read, there is a first, there's a second, the floor opens up for discussion. We had that. Then subsequently, there was a motion made, so you did not disperse of your first motion. Just so you don't think that that's the way that you're gonna go to anybody else's boardroom and handle business. But since we want to handle it differently here, let's go ahead and dispose of the motion that was made by Mrs. Botel and Mrs. Miller Anderson, because that is not the way that the rest of us who go to board meetings dispose of items on the agenda.
Just stay focused. Just stay focused.
Everybody here?
Madam Botel, would you like to repeat your motion?
I think the clerk has done a good job of doing that, thank you.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Davis?
No.
Commissioner Botel?
No.
Commissioner Miller Anderson? Vice Chair Hubbard?
No.
Madam Chair?
Motion
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'd like to make, well, maybe I'll wait. I'll wait.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to untable item A, a board motion to approve the table resolution from October 31st to direct staff to begin negotiations with APD. Backup attached.
Okay.
Dies for lack of a second.
Listen, let me handle this, and I'm gonna ask you for some politeness in the Robert Rules of Order book that you like to refer to, so I'm gonna ask you to read it. It dies for a lack of a second.
Madam Chair?
Madam Botel.
I'd like to make a motion that we go with option B so that we have a highly qualified group of industry professionals who can make a very clear and transparent process. And I will personally commit to voting up on the selection made by that selection committee. I think that my colleagues would probably do the same.
Second for negotiation. Second for discussion. Madam Chair.
Thank you. And so, therefore, I think that the reason I'll just state this again. I think that we owe it to the community who have expressed extreme passion about wanting this to be a thorough and complete and transparent process. We owe it to them to make sure that they see that we're doing everything we can to take this out of the political realm. I mean, it's clear to me that there are local people on both sides, and it's also clear that there are certain people who have extremely biased points of view about certain of these developers. I think, therefore, it's critically important that we take this process out of the Riviera Beach politics and put it in the hands of professionals, of industry professionals, who can make this decision. And then, as I have said, I will commit to abiding by whatever that selection process decides. But then we know that it's clean. We know that there's been nobody, there's been no bias, there's been no pressure being put, no political pressure, and I think that's the best way to do it. It does not slow the process down inordinately. We keep the process going. We've already voted down the cessation of this process, the termination of this process. We voted that down. We've said, as at least three of us who voted on that, we've said we want this to move forward, and we do. We don't want to stop this process. But we want it to be so clear to this community that it was done in such a way as to provide the best possible candidate. And that's all I'm going to say.
Before you go, Mr. Davis, let me say something about bias. Everybody has a certain level of bias. These are big boys. They shouldn't even be here if they're not. If they are that thin-skinned and their shoulders can't handle a certain level of biasness, they have no business here. There is going to be bias on either or both sides. People are going to feel differently about who they feel differently about. So we got to stop throwing words out there and just using them ceremoniously as if it's a bad thing. People work with who they work with. They like who they like, and they support who they support. That means that they're biased toward what they want, they like, they feel, or that they understand. The other thing to that is this: whatever we do, we want to do it for the good and the betterment of this community. If it goes all the way back to my concern with having this so-called unbiased group, that you're putting together, they're coming from this community or surrounding areas. They're going to know somebody because it's what? It's an industry, and they all are a part of the industry. So they're all in association. So one way or another, people are going to know people. So if you do want to create another group, don't think that you're creating it because you don't want any biasness. This is an industry where people are members of that industry, and they're going to know each other through somebody else, if not directly. So we can start over, but I want us to be real clear about why we starting over and what we're telling people we gonna get if we start. And when I say start over, I'm talking about the evaluation committee. Mr. Davis.
And I was, Councilperson Bolte, I second your motion with the understanding that we can get into discussion and just understand that in Riviera Beach politics, people say we're like no other. But what I will say is that I was always taught when you play the game, when you lose, you get off the court and you sit and wait to get picked up again. You don't grab your ball and go home and don't let nobody play. We all are members of the Florida League of Citizens. You had a chance to experience that recently at the conference. As you can see, when we go across the state of Florida, we all know each other. And when you go to the P3 conference and the developers conference, we all know each other. There's no way that we can make a decision with the process and find somebody that don't know nobody in this room. And that's a good thing, because what that says is there's credibility in the room. And we should be proud of that. But I think it's only a problem that when we have professionals in our community, they've been working for this city for over a decade, and then we got a local banker, Pierre, what's his name? Rodriguez, who's been doing great things with the CRA. He knows the CRA's vision. You have a finance director who's been keeping this city the credit A rating score for all these years, but prior and to now. We cannot continue to question our own people and be respected from the outside. We can't continue to do that, Councilperson. But I would like to see you, as a new commissioner, as a new leader in this community, separate yourself from the Riviera Beach past, which means excel and do what others had challenges at doing, which is saying, you know what? You talk to this person in the city, you talk to that person in the city, but there's 30,000 other folks that we all got to have a conversation with. And I guarantee you the majority of them going to say is, make a decision, move forward, and follow your process. If we want to have oversight, typically what happens is developers come to the table, they pay a fee, they have someone that provide reporting, quarterly reports to this board to let us know how the project is going. And they pay that fee. And then there's the oversight that we're talking about of a professional. And we get a quarter report to find out what's going on. We have a team in place. And I say a team, this room. This room one. For the first time in Riviera Beach history, we had a team that started already talking to folks in the other team. That's never been done before, Councilperson Botel. That's never been done before. I've been living in the city, in and out, traveling over the world. But all my life, I've never seen a developer come to the city and reach out, have conversations with different members, and reach out to Allen Branch and say, hey, we want to work well together. Because guess what? The next project and the next project, guess what happened? You'll see these two teams coming together and moving all over the city. You see synergy, which just happened to be one of the team's name, Synergy, which is working well together. We cannot not remain focused on the fact that we got some folks that's been in a meeting for 3 times. Everyone in Palm Beach County watching, what the story is going to read in Palm Beach Post at some point. Is it going to say Riviera Beach can't make a decision on its redevelopment? Or is it going to say can't Riviera Beach make a decision at all? Or is it going to say Riviera Beach finally came together to make a decision, to move forward, to do the right thing on behalf of the people? You'll be sitting in the Palm Beach Post having a conversation, talking about what that vote meant to you. You got folks in here that's all over the county, and they were a great synergy. They're not canceling nobody out from another team. Give them the opportunity to go with the other team. They're not required to do it, and they're doing it on their own because they heard what we were saying. Come back with the negotiations and let them present something to us and give them a try. Just give them a try. Day one. We tell our community to do the right thing. We tell our families to do the right thing. Follow the rules. We set rules in place. But when people win, we all got to win. We have a team. We have a process in place that is working. The only way it's broken if we stop it. And then when we go out to reach out to other folks, We can't control who knows who. The only thing that we can control is how we negotiate. That's it. We sit at the board, all 5 of us say, okay, we're going to negotiate the community benefits agreement. We're going to look at all the team members. We're going to see what significant roles they're going to play. And then guess what? You can sit back and say, you know what? And go have another conversation with the community and see what they say then. Okay, they're going to say, thank you. Because you're going to see folks from the other side saying, wow, these guys may or may not live up to their word. And then when they come back, guess what? We have the ultimate decision. Now, we can't tell them what to do and how to do it, but they already said their own words. They're going to reach out to folks and give them significant roles. Well, let's allow them to put it in action. But it's not throw the whole process out and set us back another decade. That's all. And I second that motion to really reach out to you in this conversation to give our community a chance. The whole city don't look like Sing Island. You know, and I say that with respect. Listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully. Just relax. I know you probably hear that a lot, but I'm just telling you right here, and when I knock on doors, they're not saying that you're against it. What they're saying is, at some point, we need to support to make sure that we can bridge that gap. When we start lowering taxes, it's because people on this side are buying homes instead of renting homes, and they can afford to do that. Housing is essential in this community. The only way we can address housing is creating what? Jobs and real opportunities.
Madam Chair, may I respond?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Let me be clear about this, Councilperson Davis.
Okay.
I don't need to be schooled by you
Oh, school. Okay.
in how to do this job. Nor do I need to be reminded that I am in the minority on this council.
Minority? I didn't say nothing about minority.
Madam Chair.
I know, excuse me, Mayor.
Oh, no.
I thought you were done.
Oh, no.
Excuse me. This has nothing to do with race, and it has nothing to do with trying to slow this process down. I think I made myself clear at the beginning that I hope that we don't slow this process down inordinately. I think it's incumbent on us to be sure that this community knows that this process was clean and fair. It may be true that APD comes out the winner. I am not qualified to say that. I've built schools in my time. I've built districts. I've never built a development like this. I ran a $145 million organization. I don't need to be taught how to do this. However, I do think it's important that the community understand that I don't want to slow this down. I only want to make it more transparent. I only want to do what I think is right for the community who has passion about wanting to know that there was no bias, and I will use that word. And I do think that there is a problem if there is bias. I don't think it's healthy to have certain members of an organization so concerned that their team is going to lose, possibly. I don't think that's healthy. I think that we have to have industry leaders, and I'm sorry, I do believe that we can find people in the industry who are not so tied to Tony Brown or this other gentleman who can be independent, who can be clearly not persuaded by any of the local politics of Riviera Beach. And I will say it again, I am perfectly willing and happy because I only want the best person to have this job, to win this process. And I will make a statement, I will go on record as saying, I will vote for the person who wins that next process. But I think it's important that we engage in that process, if only to say to the community, we respect what you've said. We respect that you wanted us to take another look with another fresh set of eyes. Again, I apologize for bringing up your father's name, and I extend my condolences, but the composition of that team has changed. And I think we have to take that into consideration. The new selection committee might want to take that into consideration. I don't know. It appears that Mr. Brown did not perhaps put forward the kinds of financials that the original team expected. I think we need to take that into consideration, that the new selection team should be able to ask all kinds of questions about the financials, about any kind of thing that may not have been apparent in the first go-round. I think it just cleans it up. It doesn't slow it down. I'm not wanting to drag my feet on this. I want it to go forward, but I want it to be done in such a way that this community can feel confident that it was done in a fair way without any political pressures being brought to bear. And now I would like to clarify Do we have a motion on the table?
The motion was seconded by Commissioner Davis for discussion.
Thank you. Now,
For
I would like to
option
call
B.
the question.
Madam Chair.
Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair.
Go ahead, Mr.
I want to be very clear here. In my comments, I made reference to not like Singer Island. At no point did I mention color.
Yeah.
It was all about economics. We have Asian people that live on Singer Island. We have black folks that live on Singer Island. We have Hispanics that live on Singer Island. We have Caucasian, European descent, Russian. We have everything there. At no point did I suggest anything about race. It was about economics, Councilperson Botel. That's all it was. I wasn't trying to teach you a lesson. Let's be very clear here. You talking to a gentleman, first job was cutting grass on Singer Island, doing landscape on Singer Island. So if I'm good enough to go cut grass and put in pipes and infrastructure as a little boy, I'm good enough to talk about my community. I did that. But on this side, all I'm saying is, when we make decisions, let's move forward like we did on this project now. We talking about parking. We didn't hesitate to talk about parking. We didn't hesitate to talk about a process. And I support that in that district. As a large representative, I support it. I didn't teach you a lesson. It's called cooperating together. But I take offense when someone say race. I take offense to it. I never mentioned race, and the public all saw it. I have a brother that looks just like you, and I take major offense. He's from Germany. No, my brother's from Germany. I take offense to it. And like I said, this about business. So please, when a young man speak about the community that he loves and want to support you in doing things across this entire community, please relax and allow my 5.5 brief experience to account for something. Because when I walk in other cities, and I be from River Beach, people treat me a certain kind of way. When I come home, I don't expect to get treated like I do going somewhere else. So when I come home, I am somebody. And I treat you with respect since you've been here. Never disrespected you. Never. I just simply stated about economics, Councilperson. I'm going to be very clear on that. I didn't mention race. And I'm sure when things calm down, we'll think about it, and we'll get a better place in life.
Thank you.
I'm just suggesting that we need to move forward with this question,
Yeah.
but I want to second it just for conversation.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, it's been a long night.
When I asked to call the question, does that not have to be voted on? The whether or not we call the question has to
The
be voted
mayor
on as soon
had
as I...
asked to speak, and that was when you guys were going back and forth.
I called the
You
question
probably did
before
not hear
the
him.
gentleman to my right started to speak. And when you call the question, it must be voted on by the entire council.
No. Mr. Mayor, do you have a comment before we call the question? Or you want to wait to, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I just want to be in order.
Go ahead, so then we will call the question.
Okay, it really doesn't deal with the question. Just a quick observation. It was stated earlier about the banks are watching us, but I've been watching the audience tonight. 50% of the people that were here are gone. We've been here almost 3 hours, and we have not really resolved this. This is our second or third time here. I've been told about 2 minutes ago that there are members from both teams, and this is something that you had said some time ago, Dr. Patel, that there are members of both teams who are coming together as I speak, like right this minute. And the leaders of both teams, I think, are asking to delay. They need more time to get together and kind of work some things through. That needs to be verified. If that's the case, that's what I was just told by staff. So, Madam Chair, I just want to inform you that the teams are working now to try to come up with some type of compromise or some type of something. So could we have like a 5-minute recess?
Madam Chair,
No,
I can support that.
no.
Madam Chair,
They're trying to get this together before we
Madam
can
Chair.
move on.
Excuse me, 1 minute.
I think we need to call the
no.
question, and then we can get to what he's saying.
Okay. We'll go ahead and dispose of this, and then we
Yeah,
will.
I think it's only fair that we get to this
And
motion.
then, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, may I suggest that the proper way when one asks that the question be called, is for the members to vote on whether or not they wish to have the question called.
No,
And then we
calling
can
the
proceed
question
with the
is just
vote.
that. That's, you've
No.
already asked them to,
Yes.
to call the question. So go ahead, go ahead, let's call the question, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Davis?
No.
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
No.
Vice Chair Hubbard?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I believe if what the mayor is saying is true, I think it warrants an opportunity to be, to verify if it's true or not by the team leader, if that is true.
To that end, if teams are coming together to try to work together, that's one thing and on their own. But I think that the board, the council, and the staff needs to determine what the process is going to look like. If we are going to, if we're going to throw it out and start over, then that's when that should take place. But for them to start the process over, it's going to be the tail wagging the dog. They can get together, and no one could ever stop that. So if we, if someone wants to make another motion, then we can move. We can move on.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Here's what I say: if we wanted to postpone.
No. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, I stand by the fact that we made a decision months, weeks ago, and we made a decision. We made a decision. We made a decision. And when you knock on doors in this city, there's a lot of folks that don't refuse to come to these meetings that you will get a different opinion about a lot. And when you go knock on those doors, you get a different opinion about this city. So to have one or two people say something about we the people, no, that's that person speaking. And you got to respect that person for what they speak, and you respect that. But don't say that the whole city's saying something's wrong. Every time we do something, when we grow up in this community, somebody says something wrong with us. They say something wrong. They do that to us, don't they? They do it. We all been through it. Why can't you be wrong for doing something right? But if I put my pants down, you say, put your pants up. Act right. Act a certain way. But we get in a business meeting and we make a proposal and we win a project. We got Nat Nason, Mr. Nat Nason sitting here. Grew up playing on Sing Island. Mr. Steve White, playing on Sing Island, playing on Riviera Beach on the other side of the tracks. Mr. Pleasant Workers. You got Mr. Lubeck here. They want to see something go because we approve this. They can sit down and start talking once we approve it. Let them work together. If they can work together, why can't we?
Madam Chair, I've spoken to, and I need them to say it on the record, and that way this council, this commission will have some direction. I've spoken to both leaders, and they just said to me, but they don't need to say it to me, they need to say it to all of us, that at this time they're asking for a delay because they're trying to work something together.
Well, let them come and say
They
it.
need to say
Mayor,
it to the commission.
Mr. Mayor, let me,
That's it.
Let me say this. Okay, either we're going to, either we're going to have a motion to start, or either we're going to have, if we're going to have a motion to start the process over, and then they can come together and submit again, as is others will be involved in the process, it will really be transparent. If we're going to go out, we're going to throw it out, and we're going to start over for them to merge together, and they're talking about merging a team, then it's going to be open for everybody. That's one thing we need to understand if we're talking about transparency. We cannot sit up here and let the tail wag the dog. So. And we can't have half transparency and half not. Either we are going to vote on the recommended group, let that die, or let that pass, and someone can make a motion to throw it out, because we went through the other gamut.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion to reject all the proposals and start the process anew.
Madam Chair, if I could comment.
Yes, sir.
if you wanted to preserve the ability for the teams to work together, then you wouldn't want to throw out the process.
Well, nobody's come up here and said that. So if
I've
that, I'm
asked for
sure
them to
they
come
hear
up here.
us. If that's what they're doing and they need us to know that,
And
then
I
they
don't-
should come in here and say that. Because we can go to public comment.
On the
and-
record.
But I don't think that that's a, I don't think that
That's
that's
not
a
appropriate.
process for us.
I have
think-
my motion on the floor, so.
You guys need
Are
to
we
come in
gonna-
and put it on the record.
I'll second that
motion.
motion. Call for the question, Mrs.
Hold on, what is going on?
Ms. Sequin.
What, hold on, slow down.
Did she make?
Madam Chair?
Excuse
motion.
me,
Motion's
sir.
on the floor. Madam Chair?
Matt, the
Madam Chair.
councilwoman made a motion.
What was that motion?
Madam Chair, if you're going to second, you have to pass the gavel.
They said-
You know we researched that you don't have to, but okay.
Yeah, she doesn't have to. Has it been moved in second? Are we ready to move on? Previous question, is that what we're calling?
Councilwoman, would you like to repeat your question?
Make a motion to reject all the proposals and start the process anew.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
That died for us, what happened?
Let me pass it. Second.
Madam Chair.
Kashamba made the motion, Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair.
And it was second. One minute, I was clarifying
I
something
told
for the
them Mr.
clerk,
Hall was
and I'll be right to you, Mr. Davis. Okay, 1 second.
Commissioner Davis?
No, he has a, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, he has a comment. I was clarifying that it was Kashamba Miller that made the answer. Go,
Madam Chair.
yes, sir.
I'd like to have to speak with Mr. Irons to come to the microphone as the recommended team, APD. Do you got anything that you want to say to this board, or you like to reserve as we move forward?
Thank you once again.
Come, sir.
Tony Brown and I would like to just communicate to the board that we believe that the pathway that you're moving down really puts the community in a difficult position because it further delays the work that either of us can do if, when you get to the other side of the process, either of the teams decide that they want to continue to participate. Because your question was, what do you lose? And you potentially lose the fact that you ultimately only end up with one or no teams bidding because you went from 7 the first time, you got 2 quality responses this time, and this particular type of gamble could leave us all losers, the community, the board, the project, our firms. And so what we did in the hallway is leverage both of our knowledge and integrity of the project, and we tried to focus on the fact that we have different strengths, and we'd like to ask you to give us a couple of weeks to finish up what we've started in the hallway to finalize the negotiation. We believe that we can merge the teams together to focus on the strengths and give you an opportunity to just move that forward.
And that should be a motion.
Madam Chair.
Would
I completely concur.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Could there be a motion?
I'd like to have a comment. This question directed to Mr. Brown. He said he concurs, correct? Mr. Brown?
Yes, we concur.
So,
told y'all.
no, I need to stay with Mr. Brown here, okay? I have a question, all right? Now, we getting ready to bark into the new year. I think what you all suggesting is great. And Mr. Sappho, you know what I mean by that, right?
Can you elaborate a little bit?
About coming together to try to work something out. Are you willing to follow what you're suggesting? Are you?
But in the spirit of what everyone wants, to not have controversy, to not be dividing the city up any longer, this is an opportunity right now that we want to explore.
I will say this.
Can we make a motion?
I will say this. And I can honestly say this. In the spirit of Mr. Broussard.
Please.
No, please.
Okay.
This man.
Respect the speaker.
No.
1 minute. 1 minute.
I'm going to say in the spirit of Riviera Beach and Broussard, before this project hit the street, he talked about this. Ms. Janice she can tell you about her experience. He met with Mr. Salvo before this stuff hit the street, and he talked about having a project that doesn't separate this community. He did not know that his life was going to be short-lived. He had no clue that one day he's going to wake up and 4 weeks later, all right? And I say that out of respect because his son allowed me to speak up, Mr. Broussard, because he understands what that means. I'm looking at, if that's something you all want to do, and I think it's commended, and I will, Mr. Brown, we've had our differences, and I've given you your kudos when you did great. But I will say this will be probably the greatest thing you ever done in this community. I would say that you took a posture of understanding that the community was going through something at this very moment. And you put the community in front of what you're trying to do. And I can respect you for that. And I say that to say this. If they're going to need a few weeks to sit and put some things together, with the understanding they're coming back together with something significant, we can move forward, as we negotiate, because it has to come back from negotiations in a few weeks. It has to come back. We have to approve the negotiation, which means something they have to come to the table on. We have to approve it. Okay?
Madam Chair.
We have a, hold on. No, we have a team. Let me tell you something. We're held accountable up here on this board on how we operate. We got to stop stalling. I'm willing to pause and wait as they work together to bring something before this board that's unique. Now, if that doesn't what this board want to do, I support what the board want to do. Whatever they want to do, I'm with my team here, and that's why I'm with that. But if you all want us to pause to do that, I'm with that too. I'm just making a suggestion that we, at some point, that we make a decision to make a decision. So we're saying we're taking your word for it tonight to make a decision later, but we can make a decision, but with later with understanding we can come back with a contract agreement, not with understanding. And I know you don't know what that means, Mr. Brown.
I mean,
Madam
what
Councilwoman,
know what these
Madam
mean.
Anderson.
What does that mean? What does
Miller
that mean?
Anderson.
Yes, I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
No, I didn't have, well, that was my question. What does that mean when you're saying that to them? Because of the fact that they're wanting to come together, I'm willing to remove my motion and then replace it with a motion of tabling the item.
Second.
Gladly.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
Yes.
Before you,
I
I'm
heard
sorry,
somebody second
Madam
it.
Clerk, I didn't call the question yet. Let me ask this. If we are changing the rules of the game in the middle of the game, and there are other teams that wanted to participate, how is that going to fall out?
They don't have to do
They
it.
already out. The other team.
I will research it, but if you got to be in the game, they had to submit it.
Because what I
object.
would have.
Be in the game.
Right, because what I would have said was if we had approved A, and then the two teams came together after
what I
that,
said.
then it would have been more
That's what I
transparent,
suggested.
not as clouded as it is. But go ahead, Mrs. Sequin, and call the question.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hubbard?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And that's a motion to untable, right?
That's to table
That's just
it.
No, we have, that is the motion
to stop everything.
to table it so that they can have 2 weeks to come back with their collaboration. Okay, number 5,
Madam Clerk.
Madam Clerk, number 5.
No, we have public comment that was supposed to be 7:30. We do have to go to that first.
That's
Oh,
on the
not
city
first.
side.
Hey, hold on.
Well, I'm glad I was able to negotiate something tonight.
Y'all to take a break or get yourself together. I saw it and I.
Like right now.
They've been used.
I'm gonna ask everybody to take their comments outside.
They're in. It's no special.
Because me and you gonna get it right. That part of me being a hypocrite. We're gonna take it right from this.
Have we recessed? We're not recessed.
Yes, recess, excuse me, she is not the chair tonight, yes. 5 minutes. Now get up and go. I said 5 minutes, the mayor did just like this. I said 5 minutes, I said 5. You're right, I'm gonna take some medication.
Yeah, please take your medicine, because you guys
Call the CRA meeting back to order. Would everybody take their seats, please?
You made it.
All right. We're going to ask you to take your conversations outside so we can finish this meeting and we can too go home. Mr. Lewis, can you close the door for me? And we'll have everybody that's not remaining outside.
A resolution.
Madam Clerk, Mr. Executive Director, I'm going to go ahead in case there are some people that have waited for the public comment to do theirs, sir. Are there any remaining public comments, Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am. I have Margaret Shepard and then Mr. Willis Williams.
Thank you.
Once again, good afternoon.
Good
Good evening, I'm sorry.
Good evening.
Well, someone asked me, was it a good play? Yes, it was a good play, thank you. To Mr. Evans, thank you, Mr. Evans, for meeting with me, and I did get your message. And I want to thank you because the meditation garden and the garden is moving well. I thank Mr. McCullough, who was over there Monday, and he had a class with us, and we're supposed to have another class, I think, on Friday. He's doing such an excellent job, and I want to say to you, he fit in there like a glove. Very honored to know him. Feel very honored that he can get the senior citizens out of that building. And when I say get them out the building, get them out the building. It is time for them to stop playing bingo cards, if that's what they want to do. But we're trying to build a world-class senior citizen and a world-class garden and meditation garden over at Lindsay Davis. We want to be clear. We want to be clear that we are moving forward. You all are talking, doing the whole thing. I did not talk during none of your conversation.
Pause Ms. Shepherd's time. Gentlemen.
That was rude, Terrence. I don't do you like that.
Ms. Shepherd, that wasn't just Terrence, that was the three of them.
Yes, I know. But he's a council person. He's their boss. Come on now, let's do it right. Let's not blame it on them. They work for him. First, let me apologize. Took my train of thought. Getting old now, I can't remember like I remember. But going back to the garden, a couple people cannot go over to the garden because of the pavers. And I thank you for addressing it. And Superintendent Hall did talk to me on yesterday and said that Kenny Payne's brother and Superintendent Hall, which is a great man also, is going to make it possible to get those pavers up, put them down so we can walk. Oh, because I had to tell them you have to go inside, you can't do it. Also, Mr. McCullough, the water system that was put in there, it was atrocious, no thought behind it. But Superintendent Hall came in because he is the world-class superintendent of all the parks. He's another gracious man. And Mr. McCullough, they got the little whatever, and it's now the spray mix. The plants are growing now. It's only been 3 days. All they needed was water. They got the mulch. Ms. Gwen Oakes, Mr. McCullough, and Superintendent Wano got, so it's now. We had an all-day class of how to turn that soil. So I am just intrigued with Mr. McCullough. He has got their attention, something that we never had over there. One of them started walking around and talking. I said, wait, he's during the class, and he was so kind, he said, let her go. And within a few minutes, she was back again. And when he got through with us again, we went over to the meditation garden, and we're about to get plants. We asked anybody to have like birds of paradise or different plants, and they want us to come pick them up. We will pick them up. I picked up a couple out of my yard, and I'm saying all of that because I hope you all come. Miss Hubbard is in your district, and we're going to make you proud. If you
Thank
come
you.
and
No, I didn't say thank you to stop you. I
Oh.
just said thank you when you
I
said
said,
it.
Jesus,
No,
I
ma'am.
thank you.
I was
thank
just,
you. I thank you. My heart beating so fast.
I was just thanking you for your acknowledgement.
You're doing good, Ms. Shepherd. Just
Thank you.
Go
I'm trying to
ahead.
get it all
Go
in.
ahead. Go right
And
ahead, Ms. Shepherd.
Thank you. And without I'm saying that without Mr. Evans, it would not have been procurated to get it going. I know I said something to you, Ms. Mallett Anderson, and I never got it out. But your aide, whom I saw doing the whatever, she did a leadership class. She did such a great job until I wanted to get a chair and put her name on there. And we're going to do some reading, and she's going to come over and read to our children. So we have to get your permission and get her permission. Also, Mrs. Joy Spence, also we're going to have a chair. And I'm going to buy the chairs. Don't nobody say nothing about the chairs. I will be buying them.
I want a chair.
And anybody want a chair? They're $50. We'll take your money. But we need donations. I hope the public see me. But without that, thank you very much. And we're going to make you proud. Thank you very much, Ms. Hubbard.
Absolutely, Ms. Shepherd. Thank you.
Willis Williams, followed by Mary Bram and Elizabeth Robinson.
Willis Williams, Riviera Beach, 138 East 22nd Court. Good evening, council. I know it's been a long evening for all of you, and I trust that you went through this endeavor with all the high respect that you could. It was commendable that the two groups got together and worked this situation out. Hopefully they can work it out, and we'll have somebody on board to go through the second phase of the redevelopment. My concerns are simply this, being that I live in the redevelopment area, bought over there some 30 years ago, and a lot of things are going on over there. I'm wondering how are we going to get around, or what are we going to do with Mr. Healy's property inside the marina? Mr. Brown mentioned that in his presentation couple of weeks ago. We got to do something to alleviate that problem, because we can't do anything down there until we do that. This city probably has paid enough money to buy that Yachtsman's Hotel twice already. So we got to hurry up and do something. The other thing is, across from Spanish Coast, I've noticed Mr. Healy has his property up for sale. So the city needs to start looking to buy some of these properties that he's going to be disposing of. We've got to start this. Right now, it's a big sign on that property for sale, Scott. So I'm looking for us to move forward in this community because we need to do this. I think we got a good organization here, good people that can work and do the right thing. The mayor went out and tried to negotiate outside City Hall. I don't know if it's legal or not, but he did. He go out there and try to put them together. So that's plus for the mayor. But it's one thing that I want people, and don't get this twisted. Please don't get it twisted. When you're in charge, you're in charge. Donald Trump will probably go down in history as being the worst president in the history of this country. But he in charge. And boy, he lets them know he in charge. So when you're in charge, you're in charge. Take charge. You got a bunch of the things that are going on right now, not even only in the CRA, but in your city that need to be corrected. I'm hearing that people didn't qualify in your election coming up because they wasn't notified properly and things of that nature. So it's a lot of stuff you got to start looking into and taking charge. Please take charge. Ms. Hubbard, I commend you for taking, and I commend all of you, because I know you want to see this community go forward. And the only way we can go forward in this community, we got to make sure we take care of us. Because if you take care of us, everybody else already been taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary
Ms.
Graham.
Why Ms. Graham is coming tomorrow, December the 13th, 12 o'clock p.m., the ex-felon job fair. We need employers. We're going to have 300 or 400 people there tomorrow, December the 13th, noon, 12 o'clock at the event center. So all you guys that were here tonight, try to bring some employers there. Thank you.
Miss Mary Graham, Riviera Beach. Apparently almost 9 o'clock, from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, deliberation with something that should have gone expediently, with an open mind and a meeting of the mind. Ms. Miller Anderson raised some critical questions. Your procurement process in this city, it is tilted. And that's one of your main problems in this city. We always knew it, but now we see it for a fact. It needs some harbor working on, not just for this project, but other projects in this entire city, the whole city. Because this is what happened tonight. We saw it play out. We saw it play out here tonight, and that was a disservice toward this city. And when Ms. Bram say, none of these people's called Ms. Bram to ask her input, because I don't play that. I don't sit at the table when I know that I have some objections, when I've heard it from north, south, east, and west. So when I stand here to speak, I just don't speak it off the top of my head. I know what I'm talking about. I have evidence that's back there from what I was saying. And others know that it was true, whether or not you like it or not. This forms good government. When you know better, you'll do better. And hopefully, as you sit there, you would try to do better. A meeting shouldn't be dialogue this long on one subject. On one subject. Last Friday, over at the event center, I'm going to give a shout out to the community base as a whole. What a wonderful job. You families, it was every ethnic, cultural group that was there. The Monero was there, the Christmas tree was there. Most of all the beautiful kids was there. And the Santa Claus was there too. So everything, we do have everything that's going for us in this city. So I would say too, hats off to the event planners that put that on, because that was really, really, really good. And it was worthwhile coming to. So I was glad that I came. And all of the families that got the message, thank you. Thank you for coming. I saw you and everybody was saying, Miss Brand, we here. I saw you. And everybody else saw you too. So we had a good time. So we say thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Robinson.
Good evening, Elizabeth Robinson. I guess I would have to say thank you to the groups, too, for working it out. Thank you, Ms. Botel, for saying that 2 weeks ago, that that's something you should do. So kudos to you. Thank you, Commissioner Miller Anderson, for tabling the item. So we appreciate you guys, all of you. We thank you so very much. Mayor, okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Scott, thank you. Appreciate y'all. But I want to say pretty much what Ms. Bram was talking about, the Christmas activity down at the event center. It was absolutely awesome. Kudos to Ms. Jenkins and her group. Mr. Evans, you guys did an outstanding job. You really made Riviera Beach look like the community that we really are. So I want to say thank you for that. This is not city, but I have to just say Australian Avenue and Blue Heron Boulevard, the manager isn't here, but council, Commission, please have them make it look like it did. Please have the campaign signs removed from our city because it does look a little, not a little, but it looks really trashy and it's very unappealing to us. And we have a scholarship committee that maybe the CRA might want to participate in with our youth because, as you know, the children in our community are really suffering. When we talk about economic development and economic growth and parents having jobs, the children are the ones who are suffering. So we need to start with them, with actually getting them involved with the scholarship process. And I say that because at my church, that's what we're doing. And I thought, wow, my city has a scholarship committee as well. And I thought maybe the CRA could partner with the city and sort of make a workshop happen at the event center for children 6th through 12th grade. The 6th through 8, just an introduction, Councilwoman Miller Anderson, 6 through 8, and then 9 through 12 with the actual completion of the applications. Not sure if we can get that done, but I thought I wanted to share that. And then lastly, Councilwoman Miller Anderson, thank you so very much for finishing our streets over there on Avenue H. East. Yeah, I want my sign too, but I wasn't going to go there. But the streets, we appreciate it. It was long, it was hard, it took a long time, but I kept saying to my neighbors, just wait, it's going to be beautiful. And it absolutely is beautiful. And Councilwoman Hubbard, I know you're happy about Monroe Heights because we can actually drive down the street now without the potholes. Absolutely ridiculous. But I wanted to say thank you all because you're doing a really great job. I appreciate you. You guys work really hard for us. You take the heat, but you get a product, and that's really what we want. We're about the business of our city. We're about making residents, as somebody said, apartment owners into homeowners. That's really what we're about. And Councilwoman Anderson, yes, ma'am, I would like my sign soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's the end of public comment.
Okay, number 5, Madam Clerk.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency approving an agreement with Chris Wayne and Associates to provide landscaping and irrigation services for the 13th Street corridor and other designated CRA properties within the CRA district, providing an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
Is he going to do a presentation? He's going to do a presentation first and then comment.
Oh.
Excuse me. Ms. Miller Anderson wants to see the presentation. Go ahead with the presentation. But let me say for the record, Ms. Miller Anderson, we've had several presentations and several items that we voted on, and we bypassed the presentation. So I don't want, but you want to see it. Go right ahead, sir. Let's see the presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. How you doing?
Good evening.
All right. A little bit of background information, A little bit of background information. November of 2017, the board provided approval to extend the current landscaping and irrigation contract January of 2018 until January 2018, on September 1st, 2018, the agency published an RFP number 2018-03 to provide landscaping and irrigation services for the 13th Street corridor and other areas within the CRA district. The solicitation was published in the Palm Beach Post, Demand Star, and the CRA's website. October 5th, 2018, the evaluation committee met. We reviewed the submission. Packet was received and the submission was the submittal packet was reviewed. Chris Wayne was awarded 206 points out of a possible 235 and was deemed responsive. The agency's recommendation, the agency feels that Chris Wayne has demonstrated great customer service and would like to award them a new contract. The term of the contract will be 2 years with a 1-year option to renew. Any questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I did just want to state that typically when we have a new item or new resolution that's read, we always have the presentation done, and then we come and talk, or we go to the public. If we have like a second read, then maybe some people may say they don't need a presentation, but we always, so I didn't want it to be that he was doing the presentation for me, because it wasn't for me. That is what.
No, it's for the
this-
general public.
Right.
Everybody
Right.
has a desire sometime. You can ask a lot of the department heads, they've made massive and then we would go ahead and vote, and they wouldn't even get to show, and they would all be glad. But I'm glad you did, because it sparks a question for me as well. As soon as she's done, I'll have one. Go ahead,
That's
young
it.
woman.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're done?
Yes.
Okay. Do you require any local hiring on this contract from him? In your last one is what I'm asking about the previous contracts.
No.
No.
So whichever team responds is evaluated, and there is additional points if you're a Riviera Beach-based business.
Okay, let me say this before we award this contract. People that come to do work in the city of Riviera Beach that's using taxpayers' money, we want to ask them. I like Chris Rain's work. I think they're consummate professionals. I love their landscaping abilities. But what I would like for them to do is to hire some of our local people from the community to work on the project. You know, we cannot ask every other business in Riviera Beach to hire local when we won't hire local. Because at the end of the day, if they cannot hire local, what could happen is we could put a team of guys together and put them on the ground to do this project ourselves. So I don't want it to be a goal. I don't want it to be something that they're going to try to do. We need them to hire some guys from our community on this particular contract. So when the motion is made, I'd like one of my colleagues to make a motion to state that we would like it to include the hiring of, what's the total annual cost of this contract?
It's per the CRA's annual budget. So each year, the budget includes landscaping services. In this case, what's the remaining for this year?
So is that all their contract is going to be worth, the remaining for this year? Is it only good for 2 months? Is that what you're saying?
Each year, the board approves a budget for landscaping services, and then that budget is then utilized by Chris Wayne.
What's the length of this contract then?
2 years with a 1-year option.
Right. So it's not just the remaining, okay, 2 years with renewal. So, okay, I think that it would not be robbery to ask them to hire a minimum of 3 people from the city of Riviera Beach.
Can we do that? Is that something we can do?
Yes, that's something that we can do. And we keep hiding, I'm not, okay.
Mr. Haggard?
I don't think you can do it now, after the fact.
After the fact, we haven't voted on anything.
No, I'm talking about, but the bids have went out, you had an RFP. So if you want to throw it out and do it again.
We don't have to throw it out to do it again. Y'all have to have the heart to stand up and ask those people before we sign and give them the contract, to tell them that this was approved contingent upon the fact that they were going to hire a minimum of 3 people from this community. You know what? I'd rather for them to sue me and see me in court because they're spending our money and we can't demand that they hire 3 people from our community.
If you, as a client, despite I tell you want to do that, you are the client, you are the owner, and that's what we'll do. And if you get sued,
Madam Chair,
let's get sued.
Madam Chair, I know, and I support you on that, but not in that manner. But we have a lot of conversations about wanting people to hire local, and we say it a lot verbally, but until we have something in writing up front, like a community benefits plan, that needs to be along with that bid. And so when they are bidding on the project, they know what to expect, and then we also need to have the enforcement piece there. And so that goes back to what I've been talking about regarding, I mentioned before about a Cleveland type project, and that was what I asked Mr. Haygood and Mr. Evans to look at in that way, which it will be coming up, but it won't go into effect until it comes back to the board. And then for future projects, we can put in there to demand whatever it is that where you're trying to get. Right. But we can't, they've won the bid is already done. We can't come back and require them to.
We certainly can request it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But I mean, we do that a lot and it doesn't happen. But that's verbal. But we need to put it in writing.
Okay,
right, I agree.
let me say two things to that. Either I want to make a motion that we table this. This is only a landscaping contract. Nobody's going to live or die behind this contract. If we have to put it out to add a line in it that says we want local people hired to work on the contract, then so be it. Secondly, I have been fighting about getting our procurement code done. We had in July, there was something on the books for the procurement department to come back with language that included local participation. We have yet to see that, but I want to slide this over here.
Madam Chair, if I could just respond.
Yes.
We will request, if you approve this evening, we will request that Chris Wayne and Associates hire 3 Riviera Beach-based employees. And I also want to let you know that we're developing CRA's own regulations that would allow us to require that up front. And those will come back to you in the spring.
When you say request, what do you mean?
So we will request that Chris Wayne and Associates hire 3 Riviera Beach residents. And if he does, and if that's the part of the motion and he elects not to do that, then we'll have to bring it back to you for a future decision.
Okay.
That's good. That's right.
That's fine.
There's a motion on the floor?
Who made the motion?
I think I made the.
Can you include that?
Yes, I'll include that language.
What was that?
That he's going to request it. Fine. Doesn't
But
mean
that
anything.
doesn't, yeah, I mean, it's a request.
He's going to request that, and if they don't, then he will go back to the drawing board and start this over.
That's what you just said?
That's what he just
Something
said.
like that, yeah.
Is that what you
Just let
said,
it go.
Mr.
Wait, no, you
I said that
that's
if-
not what he said. You said that you would request it.
And I asked him, what does that mean? And tell him again what it means.
If he decides that he does not like that decision, then rather than sign the contract, we'll bring the issue back to you.
To us. Thank you. Yeah, it's a landscape contract. Nothing's going to happen.
It's a request, but it's not going to be put in writing.
It is when he talked to him.
How is it going to be put in writing when
He said that if he does not like that at the time, he is going to bring it back to us for us to redo. Now, I am really tired of playing with our contracts and our procurement. It's time for us to demand and to do business and stand up for what we said that we were going to.
Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a couple of people here. Now, which one of you spoke first?
I agree with you in demanding that we have locals hired. But we have to put it in writing. It is on us, the reason why we're not getting it.
Because
It's not-
every time I have
But
brought
no.
it, y'all have voted it down.
Well, no, that's because of the way it's being brought. We need to have a policy.
The
And
policy was voted down each time.
we haven't had one in writing. We don't have one.
Time to vote it up.
We've just
The
been
policy.
saying we want people to hire.
Right.
And because it's not in writing, people know they don't have to adhere to that.
Advantage of
So
it.
there is Mr. Evans and Mr. Haygood are going to be bringing something back that they've researched to get exactly what you want done.
Why?
It won't apply for this.
Yes, it will, based on what Mr.
Come on,
what
let's just
Mr. Based on what Mr. Evans just said, it will apply for this one. And the
Vaughn, just
only
give me
way
1
that
minute.
it don't apply is that y'all are saying it. He just told us how he was going to make it apply.
By a request
Now, what part
verbally.
of that was not
Madam
going
Chair.
A request
understand?
verbally.
Excuse me, Mr. Evans, when you requested of him and he agreed to it, will that be a part of the contract that you actually go into signature with?
If the board makes the motion requiring that.
And that's why I asked Mrs. Botel,
That's what she did.
would she amend her motion? And she said,
No, she made the original motion. She supported
I made the original motion. I'll amend it to the extent that I will allow for Mr. Evans asking, but rather than stopping the process, let's get this done right. As Councilperson Miller Anderson has said, we need a clearly defined process. You have said that you will work on that. I trust that you'll work on that. Let's make this motion that you will ask for it. Let's not have any consequences in bringing it back. Let's move it forward. Let's get this done. I make that motion. I think I still have a second. Yes, I still have a second. I call the question.
comment. There is, we
I know you have to
cannot,
go, Mr. Vaughn. Give me one.
we cannot have procurement without consequences. You have to put consequences in place. And Mr. Evans, before he signs the contract, that will be in there, or he will bring it back to us. Why are we fighting the opportunity for our own people to get a part to work, to at least work on this contract? This is merely cutting grass, pulling weeds. What is it about the fact that you don't want a mandatory 3 people to be in this, and he's already told us how he is going to do it? Let's add that to the contract, to the motion, so that he can go forward, and we can go forward.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor.
That's the
Is there a
motion.
motion?
That's the existing motion.
Is it?
That is it.
Call the question, please.
Don't call, hey, don't call the question. Make her get.
Hold on, what are we doing?
Nobody's changing.
Why you all in?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what are we doing?
He's going to, I guess the motion is amended to that extent, as Mrs. Botel said.
She did.
Or
The
she can correct
motion
me.
is amended to the extent that we are requesting that they employ 3 Riviera Beach residents. We're not putting any teeth in that right now. We're asking staff to come before us with a well-thought-out and reasoned proposal that will put into place a process such that going forward, we will have clear direction about how these things will take place. I don't think there's anybody here objecting. I can't imagine that anybody would object to that. It's never come before
Why
me
would
since
we
I've,
not put
it's
the-
never been, excuse me, it's never come before me since I've been on council. I certainly wouldn't vote against it, and I would expect that Mr. Evans will work toward that end. So can we please move this forward and call the question and vote on this now?
When you're tired of talking about it, then you want to move it forward. With 3, why in the world? See, and I want everybody to see this. This is what happened. Every project that we have had, that we have asked, that we start demanding that local participation happens on the project, and there is teeth in it, it doesn't happen because this is what happened. What is wrong with demanding that 3 local people can get in on a grass cutting contract? And if they refuse to do it, then we should put it back. We should have enough pride about ourselves to say that we deserve to have at least 3 people on it. We're going to a job fair for ex-offenders, and we're asking other companies to come and hire people, but yet we can't tell people when we're spending this kind of money that they can hire 3 guys to cut grass.
Sure.
So I mean, we can't say that we want this if we really don't want it. We'll put some teeth in it the next time. We said that about the $40 million in phase 1 at the marina. And you see what we got? There was no teeth in that. So now we're talking about a landscaping contract, and we are afraid to mandate that they hire at least 3 local people on the job.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr.
I
Davis.
support what you're saying. I think we can move forward with this on this item and bring something back immediately so we don't bring any other contracts before the CRA without this being addressed.
Why is, somebody has to tell me, why do they not want to have Chris Wayne hire 3 local people on this contract?
Madam Chair.
Well, he's the good guy. He'll do it.
Ma'am.
He'll do it.
Because first of all, I don't have a problem with it being requested, and I think we've all said that numerous times, but it's almost like we're holding this hostage and extorting, it's like extortion almost. But the reason I say that is because the man, he won already. The other team won already. That was a whole different process. It was an evaluation. This was not. So it was the lowest bidder. This is the thing I'm trying to say, Ms. Hubbard. We, as a council or board, have not put in a policy, a procedure in place so that it is attached to every bid. It would be attached to every bid, and there will be an enforcement piece associated with it.
Okay.
And
they are working on that.
No, we're working on it on the city side as well, and it has been before this council it has been before this council more than once. And I can take you back to the Lawler building when they came here for us down at the bottom of that bridge. We did not want to mandate and require, but they were asking us for 3 separate things.
We didn't have a
and
policy
we gave
in place.
away the store, and we would not vote on the policy then. But let me say this.
We don't have a policy.
Let me say this. There is no, the policy came up here and it did not pass.
We don't have a policy.
No, we don't have a policy. And we don't want a policy because we can't make certain things happen when we have policies in place. What is it that would make you want to give, not put, and holding them hostage? Guess what? That's the way those people got that money in Atlanta. And that's the way they created wealth. They held up the project until people wanted to participate. And then their mayor did not apologize for it till he got some black equity participation in there. And we sitting up here apologizing for holding it hostage and holding it up. We need to hold it up. It's a landscaping contract. So I can see what we're going to do with that $300 million contract if we can't even demand that local participation in a landscaping contract. So
Madam
what are we
Chair.
going to do when we have a $300 million contract?
Okay.
Madam Chair.
We ready?
Call the question,
Yeah, we're
please.
ready.
Please call the question.
Ms. Monique, Ms. Sequin.
This ain't on the good note.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hubbard?
No.
Madam Chair, I just need to make a comment. Not
Motion
about
carries
this.
with Vice Chair Hubbard.
Not
to
about
send
Get
it.
to the agenda, then we can do that.
I need to make one quick comment to Mr. Vaughn, and I asked him to stay, and he's been trying to leave for the longest, but I just want to apologize to you. I got a chance to review the tape, and I saw that I was way somewhere. And so if my questioning was rude or intimidating, it wasn't my intent. So I apologize to you for that, because that wasn't what I was trying to do. So just want to let you know.
Item 6.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency authorizing staff to enter into a contract with AK Building Services to provide night porter services at the Marina Event Center, providing an effective date.
So move.
Second.
Good evening, Commissioners. Anita Jenkins, Director of Neighborhood Services. This is a request from staff to approve and give us the authority to negotiate and execute an agreement with AK Building Services. We requested quotes from 6 commercial cleaning services. 3 responded. Of the 3 that responded, only 2 elected to move forward with a quote. The 3rd company did not provide the services that we required. We currently have an agreement with AK Building Services to provide porter services to us at the event center on the weekend, and we'd like to extend that to Wednesday through Sunday to make us more efficient in turning around the rooms to make it more saleable for users of the event center. We've done an evaluation, and this would be a more cost-effective method in terms of using fewer dollars for a better service. So we're asking for your approval to allow us to execute an agreement with AK Building Services for the remainder of this fiscal year at a cost of $49,817. So if there are any questions.
Questions, comments? None. Call the question, madam.
Did we have any public comment?
Hey, call the question, Mrs., you have a comment?
I do. Mary Bram?
Mrs. Brown?
Ms. Oh, I'm sorry. She's for number 7. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hubbard?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Redevelopment Agency authorizing staff to solicit requests for proposals for entrepreneurs to participate in an emerging micro business entrepreneur program and to rank respondents for consideration by the Board of Commissioners, providing an effective date.
So
Second.
This item was heard previously at our October meeting, and the board directed us to add a few changes that would add some requirements to the type of business that would respond. They wanted more details and specificity in the requirements. We've changed it so that it's only for businesses who would have up to three or less employees. They would also have to provide financial documentation to verify their personal and business income. We reduced the number of years from 3 years to 2 years with 1 year option, and we've now bringing it back to you with those changes, and we'd like to put it out. This is would be a fabulous opportunity to have a small business who is retail related move into the old Dairy Bell building, and we're providing money to rebuild the building as well as $5,000 additional to help with their build up.
Okay, are there any comments, questions, or concerns on the deals?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
I just have one, so we don't get caught in the same quagmire that we have with this last proposal. There's going to be a criteria for selecting, ranking those people, the respondents. If it comes to you and you don't like it, you got to go through, so you need to understand you're going to have to go through the same process of ranking them.
Okay.
So if you aren't willing to just
Well, Madam Chair? Well,
Go ahead,
can I speak
you're
now?
recognized, yes,
Thank
you're
you, ma'am. I
recognized.
appreciate that so much. I would think maybe we want to go the route with the evaluators being similar to the way we were talking about, making sure we get industry people. And it seemed that everybody was pretty okay with that when we spoke about it tonight. So maybe instead of getting the in-house people, you go that route and, you know, provide those names, go through that process you were listing as an option.
And I'm not suggesting to you that you don't have the right if you
Yeah,
don't.
I know.
But you're still going to have to go through the rankings. and
Well, you know what our issues are, so we can,
Madam,
you know,
Madam Chair,
maybe avoid it that way.
What are the issues?
Madam Chair.
So that they'll know.
The ones we spent 2-3 hours talking
We
about.
have to vote to continue. We
Ma-
have to vote to continue.
No, not for this.
1 minute, Mr. Davis, let them finish the
Excuse me,
comments
Madam
down
Chair?
here. What,
Wait, oh, we need to make a motion to untable the item.
It was tabled.
motion on table.
Second.
Madam
if
Chair,
it's, yes, sir.
I just want to say, once again, we got to take pride in the people that we have here in our city. Now, not to exclude, like in the last process, we had Mr. Pierre Rodriguez from Core America Bank in this process, a local business owner. And we don't want to exclude taking out our local people in Riviera Beach from participating in this process. But we got to believe in our own people and encourage them to get better at whatever it is they're doing. Whatever they issue they are, we need to help them get there if there's an issue. And if there's not, let's still encourage them to do better. But I don't want to think that our people here local in Riviera Beach and our employees, they've been here for 10, 11, 12 years, that they don't have the support of the commission willing to help them get better. Because that sends a bad message to those that are trying to apply for jobs coming here in the near future. And we want to try to find a way to recruit better talent that wants to grow from within and from outside. So let's make sure that we don't exclude that, because that last process, I stand stone scorched about whatever staff has done, just like any other process coming up. And because someone from the street said something, don't mean it's true. I mean, if they have something in place, there's something in place that we're going to execute on. And I thank Attorney Haygood for bringing that to our attention, because every time we make a decision, we have to be prepared to follow it all the way through and stay consistent.
Thank
and if
you.
someone from the outside make a complaint, let them go through the protest. Let them spend the money, but don't let them protest for free. Make them write a check, file a protest, and let us go ahead and go through the property. Don't let them protest for free. There's a protest process that people have to pay for, but don't let them do it for free.
Thank you, sir. Call the question, madam.
I have one
You
public
do?
comment card,
Well, this
Ms.
is
Mary Brown.
Mrs. Mary Brown, this is yours.
Miss Mary Brown, Riviera Beach, we will be in the same spot with this. Now you have a chance to correct this. Any flaws that you may see with this now, you have a chance to correct it. I made mention about the procurement. Ms. Hubbard, you were on it, because basically, these are where your problem lies. And when you, as a governing board, your policies and procedures dictates your method in what you expect to deliver upon and have done. Where you said, you know, you want to make your local participation, okay, but you still have to open it up regardless. But the process cannot be tainted. It cannot be hands in the pot. You know, it will always shows that, you know, we want to be fair. That's just like the voting process. I don't want no straws pulled on you. I don't want no paper put in some little container. We want to be fair. And we want to open up whatever we do in this city here. This is where the transparency comes in at. Not who we know, because a lot of times who we know is not all who's good for the jobs. We just try. I'm going to use that phrase there. We try them and we hold them accountable. This is where that accountability comes in at. I'm going to try you. But it still comes with we as a governing board that we hold whoever comes into our city and do the business, we hold them accountable. Not just allow them to bank on, well, I knew Miss Brown, and this is how I got this. Because Miss Brown would never vouch for you like that. You would have to be qualified, or you would have to have something in place to show that you can meet these demands here. Because, see, down at that dairy bell, if I'm correct, this is that dairy bell. And you already put in there from 3 or less employees. I guess how small the place is down there. But you do want somebody to come in there, on that corridor there, that will put in that business there and make that business a productive business and not just stay there because the time will be up. In how many years? 2 years or so? Whatever criteria that you all have set in place. As a governing board, you all need to set these things in place here. So when this comes to you as a board, then you want to dialogue this out of it. You want to dialogue that out of it. When you have a chance to get it right. So if you don't want to approve this now, you want to go back and put something in there, then do that. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Anything from the executive director?
No.
I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. Let's call the question, ma'am.
We have to do 2 votes. One vote is to untable it. And the
We
other
did.
vote- Well, we just did a motion and a second.
We
We actually have to vote to untable it.
Okay, let's give her the votes to untable it. Call the roll.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hubbard?
Yes.
Okay. And the second vote will be to approve the item.
Make a
We
motion.
didn't call the question.
Second.
That's what I was trying.
Wait, we already have a motion.
We have a motion,
We
sorry.
already have that. I just going to take the vote
Go
now.
ahead.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hubbard?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Is there any, a report from the executive director?
I have no further comments.
Council?
None.
No, Merry Christmas.
That council.
Not the attorney, excuse me, that council. Attorney, Hagan,
council.
sir, okay, all right, board? Any comments from the board?
Yes, Madam Chair.
No.
Okay, all right, Mr. Davis?
I would just like to say once again, last Friday night was a great monumental experience for our community. I want to say to Ms. Jenkins and Mr. Evans and the team of CRA, CDC, job one them for leading this initiative to the tree lighting ceremony. Next year we want to be much bigger and better. To our police department, our fire department, all our volunteers across there who participated, and all the families who came out from Martin County all the way South Florida. And it was a great experience to see our community have a spirit of a holiday that really just set the tone as we roll into the new year. And I like to just say for the record, this spurred in a conversation with Mr. Evans about with the Fair Association talking about these experiences and what we wanted to do. So next year, the goal is to not have a 20-foot tree, but have at least a 30-foot tree, as well as an ice skating rink and different games and things that we can experience on the weekend. So we definitely want to have a chance to do that, and Santa Claus will be ready to come back again. He said he had a wonderful time. He said, you know, he really enjoyed the family, so I told him I'd make sure that he got to come back again next year.
Tell him that, huh?
I'll make sure I tell him that. He was happy. He wasn't too tired, but he had a nice time. To the chair, I would like to say, as long as I'd like to say congratulations on your meeting for chair. I think on the focal point of where we was with the important issue, why everybody came out, you kept us all on task on that issue, and I can commend you and respect you for that. Later, we talk about the procurement item that you want to discuss. Yes, Miller 3 was something that we wanted to do. We just have to get staff to support and bring something back and right that we can approve on. And also, in the next meeting, I would like to make sure staff address what is a substitute motion, what it trumps, and what it does. Please bring that information back. I know it's late, so we can move forward, but thank you guys. Remember, we must remain focused as we work together as a board. Make sure that we do not lose connection of why we're here and who we're working for. And I look forward to working with you guys in the new year as we roll into the CRA.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I want to thank all of you who stayed out there and listened by way of TV, those that stayed in the room. Yes, indeed, it's a difficult process for us to do business for the city and by the city. But I say we must, as a community, insist that we create wealth in our own community until we start trying to develop ourselves economically. We won't do any better. And I don't have a hostile feeling about it. I have a passion about moving our city forward, hiding behind laws that was made to keep us out of the game and to say that we cannot play in the game. We're at the table to create our own rules and regulations that allow us to create wealth for us and for our own people. We can't hide behind a set of rules that we know weren't meant for us in the first place. So I think that's a cowardice move, and I think that we have to stand up and be bold enough to create a procurement policy and procedure that's going to allow us to participate. We have a procurement department. We have an interim procurement person there. We need someone that understands how to move this place, this city forward. Every time it comes to this dais, it never passes. And when it cannot pass, for a local landscaping contract to get some local guys on that job, it's a sad day up here. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, just 30 seconds. Whenever I see Dr. Patel grabs her purse, I know she's ready to go. So I'm gonna get this in real quick. Tomorrow, again, at 10 a.m., December 13th, Thursday, at the Event Center, Ex-Felon Job Fair. I want to thank Dr. Patel for working with me on this project as we were working together with the workforce development thing as well. Friday, at 12 o'clock noon, we will gather at the Pentecostal Church of God in Christ. Councilwoman Vice Chair Hubbard was very instrumental in getting this done. The ceremony for the renaming of the street will take place Friday at 12 noon. That's Bishop John D. Alexander. Last but not least, without praying a prayer, I do want to say it is my prayer that these two will come together tonight. The developers, the master developer, will come together and become one team and move this city forward in the spirit of unity and progress. That is my prayer. That is my thought. And we all should be on the same page. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Happy holidays.